Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, it is time for one of our favorite podcasts of the year. It is win total over-unders. We're doing the Eastern Conference first. Then we will move over to the Western Conference later this week. It is Bryce Simon and Andrew Claudio both joining me. I'm excited to run through this. Folks, let's do it.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What's this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Folks, it's a sad day. It's a bad day. The United States has lost the Ryder Cup in New York. Really, I think we just need to jettison New York is where we're at, because the New York Mets have also missed the playoffs. Andrew Claudio is very sad. Bryce is fine. You know, he's
I'm about to play Clash Royale for the next 5 minutes while you guys talk about whatever. So carry on.
Andrew, commiserations to you. Commiserations to me. You know, the bank account's not looking strong this weekend with the Ryder Cup, unfortunately.
Yeah. You know whose bank account is going to look great this offseason? That'd be one Pete Alonso, who opted out the fastest I think anybody's ever opted out of a contract, which was minutes after the Mets completed the worst collapse in Mets history, one of the worst collapses in baseball history. We're 21 games over 500 in the middle of June, finished 83-73 after going 38-55 over the final 93 games of the season, the fifth worst in baseball over that time. And any credibility that boy genius David Stearns had, that first-year wonder manager Carlos Mendoza had, or pretty much anybody in the Mets organization had, that's all gone. So you better bring back Pete Alonso. You better bring back Edwin Diaz. There's a lot of guys I just never want to see again. 48 pitchers used by the New York Mets this season, Sam. Most in baseball history by a single team. Yeah, and we got to see all of them on display today as the Mets used 9 pitchers to get through 9 innings. What if I told you Edwin Diaz, set to opt out and become a free agent, threw and got the most outs today for the Mets in a 9-inning game? Their closer came in the 5th inning and got 6 outs. And to make matters worse, I can't even say another team caught them and passed them. Shout out to the Cincinnati Reds. Anybody from Cincinnati watching today, good on you. You get to watch your 83-win team go to the playoffs. You lost to the Pirates twice this week and then lost today. So you didn't even go in and clinch. You gave the Mets control over their own destiny one last time, but not the 2025 Mets. Not this team that has more money invested in them than anybody's ever had in New York City ever, including Mr. Cohen, the owner that just went out of his way to tell fans, you didn't come to the ballpark enough last year. We were 16th in attendance. That better change this year. Well, guess what? We went, Uncle Stevie. We heard the call. We went there. And what did you return us? A team that didn't make the playoffs and went 0-70 when trailing after 9 innings this season. Not one 9th inning comeback. You know the last team to go 0-70, Sam? 0-70 without a comeback in the 9th inning. 0-70 when trailing after 8 innings. You know the last team to do that? It's the Chicago White Sox of last year that lost 121 games.
I just assume any ineptitude is going to be the Pirates. So, you know, but by the way, there's trivia question for the indomitable Andrew Claudio this year. There's one player who pitched for both the New York Mets and the Pittsburgh Pirates this year. Can you name that pitcher?
They had so many pitchers go through their team this year. So I actually don't know who the one Met Pirate exists. Tell me, please.
Shout out Genesis Cabrera.
That's right. I remember him from earlier in the season. That's right. And he ended up back. That's right. Didn't he pitch like this?
Hold on. Update. I won my game. I won my game.
Yes.
I won my game of Clash Royale. Okay, go on.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I have never been more infuriated by the ending of a baseball season. And that includes 2 September collapses in 2007 and 2008.
See, like your sadness is, justified and frustrated and real. Mine just immediately went to like depression after the Friday session of the Ryder Cup, where like they just lost 5.5 to 2.5 immediately, and then they lost both sessions yesterday, 3-1 on Saturday, and it was just so clear that there was such organizational ineptitude in terms of setting up the course to make it a putting contest, which is where Team USA had the least advantage over Europe. And then like the craziest thing with the Ryder Cup to me was they had Russell Henley come out and hit off the first tees when there was a significant advantage to the longer, better driver in foursomes, hitting off of the odd tees as opposed to the even tees, because in foursomes you switch who hits off of each tee. And then in the second day, they kept Henley and Scotty Scheffler together, and then they had Scotty Scheffler come out and hit off of the first tee. And look, like Europe did that, I believe, with what was it? It was Hovland and I think was it Fitz? No, it wasn't Fitz. It might have been Mac. It might have been Bobby Mack. But like, look, that stuff happens. But there's such a significant difference between Russell Henley and Scotty Scheffler as a driver that it just shows such like organizational lack of preparedness to me. Like you can get stuff right. Like maybe you just got the course wrong, right? Like you had a plan going in, you were wrong about the plan, right? That happens. You can have ideas about what you want to do pairings wise, and you can send out fucking Harris English and Colin Morikawa 2 times just to get absolutely dusted by Tommy Fleetwood and Rory McIlroy. Totally like indefensible the second time, but like, you had a plan, you wanted to stick to the plan. Okay, fine. Having different guys tee off in foursomes in a different order when there's such a drastic difference between them skill set wise is just one of those things that from a process perspective, I can't wrap my head around. Like that's completely fucking crazy to me. It just does not make any sense whatsoever. They completely screwed up the course. Like they cut the rough way too short. It was better. I don't know if you guys watched any of the Ryder Cup, but like this is the best way to explain it. It was better to hit out of the rough than it was out of the fairway, because you couldn't control the spin out of the fairway well enough. And that's because the greens got too soft because it rained. That's something that like you can't really control, is what it is. But when that's the case, it means you fucked up cutting the rough too short, is the reality. Like if you have a better chance to hit out of the rough than you do out of the fairway, you've just made such, and like it made for a worse viewing experience, because like there was just no way once somebody like went up in a match in the 4 balls and the foursomes, there was just no way to come back at that point, it felt like to me, because it was too easy to score. So people are bitching about Scotty Scheffler going 0 for 4 in his 4 balls and foursomes. Scotty Scheffler and his team, I think, had 23 birdies in 65 holes. They just got beat by European golfers like playing better. Like that's stuff that I don't really care about. But yeah, I don't know. This is tough. This is a tough weekend, Andrew.
You got that right. And I had a couple cousins by marriage that were at the Ryder Cup today. Shout out to Long Island. Yeah,
I told you yesterday, like I'm worried that this is going to turn like ugly, and that the fans were going to turn on Team USA at a certain point if this got like really bad. Yeah. So at least that didn't happen.
I'm glad they had a good day. I'm glad you kind of had a good day. And Bryce, Sam, can you do the Bryce, what's going on, buddy? Because I think that actually is the appropriate way to transition into basketball talk.
Bryce, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm good. I just got a nice little Clash win. I don't look at the comments anyway, but I think the commenters probably know I'm a Chiefs fan. I don't know the result yet. So we'll see if my oldest son, who did watch the full game, can keep his composure one way or the other. And I'm excited. I realize we have like exhibition basketball next week. So not very many more episodes without talking about some level of real quote unquote basketball from NBA players. And we're almost to the end of this restricted free agency nonsense.
We're closing in real quick before we get into basketball here. We got to shout out the Substack. All week last week, we were in the top 15 of Substacks, like fastest rising sports, Substacks or whatever. So we appreciate you guys so much for going to hit the subscribe button on the Substack. Keep doing it. We have videos coming this week. Bryce has done 2 coming up here on Dash Daniels and Karim Lopez. I will have at least 1, maybe 2 going up on Michael Brown this week. We have a lot of stuff going up on the Substack, a lot of videos, a lot of really great stuff. Go hit the subscribe button. GameTheorySamV.substack.com. GameTheorySamV.substack.com. You're going to get an amazing amount of video breakdowns on basketball players, not on the Ryder Cup or the Mets. I promise you that. It will be a lot of really, really fun stuff coming up soon. We've already got 3 video breakdowns on AJ DeBanza up there that I have uploaded. We will have in the coming weeks Darren Peterson. We will have Jaden Quaintance. We will have Jacob Furphy, because I am who I am and I have to do that. We will have so many fun players, Koa Pete as well. Go hit the subscribe button over on the Substack. It is the absolute best way to support the show. GameTheorySamV.substack.com. Thanks, guys. Let's move to Eastern Conference over-unders. I think we can wait to talk about Al Horford. It's kind of just been known for a while that he's going to the Warriors. So I don't know that I need to really talk about that in depth. We'll maybe talk about that on Thursday when we do Western Conference over-unders in terms of what that might look like. We will have a little bit more news, hopefully, coming up here, by the time we do Western Conference over-unders, because it feels like to me, Jonathan Kuminga, there's an October 1st deadline. Both sides can agree to move that deadline, but both sides have to agree to move that deadline. The Warriors just can't unilaterally go, we're moving it to October 5th or whatever. It feels like we're coming to a conclusion at some point here in the next few days. We'll see if that ends up being right or wrong, but I feel like hopefully by the time we get to the West, we will have a conclusion on the Jonathan Kuminga thing. We do not have a conclusion on the Quentin Grimes thing, and we're still going to talk about Eastern Conference over-unders. It does feel like he's at least going to play for them this year to me. So it's just it was easier to put the East here, in my opinion, on the Sunday slot, just because we have a better sense of Quentin Grimes. So, okay. Before we get into the Eastern Conference over-unders and talk about the actual numbers, right? And we will be doing that with numbers courtesy of Fanatics Sportsbook. Shout out to Fanatics Sportsbook. The East is wide open this year, so I'll set the table for Bryce because Andrew and I have talked enough already. Do you think the East is as wide open as it appears on paper? Or do you think that there is a little bit less? Do you think it's a little bit more stratified tiers-wise than what maybe we're expecting?
Yeah, so I mean, we'll talk about this a little bit when we get into the numbers, but I kind of have 3 teams at the top that, I don't want to spoil it, that I feel decent about. One of those being very unproven. And then I have a few more teams that I think are interesting. I don't know how much a title contenders they are because of roster flaws with them. And then there may be a couple more teams that, barring insane health, could really get in the picture. So I guess to your question, there's not a team that I just think is overwhelming dominant that's going to run away with this. And I think that will really show whenever I give my over-unders with these teams at the top. But I do think that there's probably 3 teams I feel better about than anybody else. And I won't say that one of those is very unproven with a new roster. I think that probably spoils a little bit. There's a few more teams that I like that are, playoff teams. And then I'll be honest, guys, there was another 5 or 6 teams where I'm just oh man, I could be way over wrong on this, way under wrong on this. I'm just not really sure. So I hope maybe that answers your question a little bit without spoiling too much of where I'm going to go on some of my over-unders.
Andrew, where are you at on this?
I fall similar to where Bryce is in that the tiers do exist. My tier is currently 2 in the top of the conference, but I think where you're going with this, Bryce, I have 2 teams in the next tier down that if things break right and if I see on the court that it's fully realized, either one of those teams can move from the second tier into the top tier with the top two.
Real quick, that would be a regular season tier of 3. If you ask me specifically for a playoff tier, it would be a tier of 2 until I see said team a little bit more. But in terms of like regular season predictions, wins, whatever, it was a little close enough to have a tier of 3.
So the irony is that I now know what team you're talking about, and I actually think the playoff tier goes closer to 3 for me than the regular season tier, which will come up when we have the conversation. But as far as it being wide open, I think what last year's playoffs showed us, where you had 2 teams kind of run roughshod over the conference and win 60+ games, and then 2 teams that barely won 50 games played each other, and the team that finished in 4th that was kind of on a divine intervention ride mixed with some outstanding clutch time play ended up going to the finals. I could see a similar thing where you have a team in the middle of the pack, and maybe it's potentially a team with the best player in the conference make a run. So I agree it's wide open to an extent, but as far as the regular season is concerned, I would be shocked if a certain outcome didn't come as over the course of 82 games.
Yeah, I think that where I'm at is that I do see like a tier of 3. I have another like 1 team that I think is like definitely a playoff team. And then I would say from 5 all the way down to, I would say 11 is kind of my group.
Sure.
Like that's reality in the East. Like I think you could sell me on Detroit winning 50 games because Cade Cunningham just absolutely loses his mind and becomes one of the 6 best players in the league or whatever. Or you could sell me on them winning like 39 games, right? Because they just take like this slight step back without the shooting that they need, right? You could sell me on Giannis playing 80, or 75 games and the Bucks just being carried to 48 wins like they were last year. You could sell me on Giannis missing 40 games because he gets hurt or something, or because they kind of like slowly settle it, down near the end of the year, and they win like 36 games or 35 games, right? The Sixers are wide open. The Celtics are wide open. The Heat are wide open. The Pacers are wide open. Like there are just so many different, there's so much variance between all of these teams, I think, in the middle of the conference. And I'm really, really excited to kind of talk through all of those. We're going to go in order, and this is a slight change from years past. So I apologize to the people that, like organization on this show. We are going to go in order of the win total over under that is currently listed on Fanatics Sportsbook for all of this. So that order is going to be Cavaliers, Knicks, Magic, Hawks, Pistons, Bucks, 76ers, Celtics, Heat, Pacers, Raptors, Bulls, Hornets, Nets, Wizards. So I just wanted to give you guys like kind of a preview of the order that we're doing this in. Before we get into the over-unders, we're going to shout out our friends over at NUTRAFOL. Because if there's one thing that we love to do here, we got to shout out our sponsors. So, over at NUTRAFOL, if you're dealing with hair issues like thinning or shedding, but you feel totally stuck on what to try next, there are so many products out there, and it's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything. NUTRAFOL is not just hype. It's physician-formulated, clinically tested, and even recommended by dermatologists. NUTRAFOL is in fact the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. You can feel great about what you're putting into your body since NUTRAFOL hair growth supplements are backed by peer-reviewed studies and NSF Contents certified. That is the gold standard in third-party certification for supplements. See thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with NUTRAFOL. For a limited time, NUTRAFOL is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to NUTRAFOL.com and enter the promo code GAMETHEORY. Find out why NUTRAFOL is the best-selling hair growth supplement brand over at NUTRAFOL.com. Spelled NUTRAFOL.com, promo code Game Theory. That's NUTRAFOL.com, promo code Game Theory. Okay. Let's start the over-unders. It is time. The Cleveland Cavaliers. Their over-under is 56.5. And again, these come via Fanatics. 56.5 is a big number. That is the second biggest number league-wide behind the Oklahoma City Thunder this season. For reference, the Cleveland Cavaliers last season went 64-18. They had the best offense in the league and the 8th best defense in the league. They played at an incredible pace under new coach last season, Kenny Atkinson. I would argue they stayed fairly healthy at the top of their lineup last year. Donovan Mitchell played 71 games. Darius Garland played 75 games. Evan Mobley played 71. Jared Allen played 82. They did have some injuries here and there to some of their bench players like Max Strus, who will miss the start of this season as well, did miss some games at the start of last season too. Ty Jerome is gone. Sam Merrill remains there. Both of those guys played 70 and 71 games last season. In terms of offseason additions this year, they traded Isaac Okoro for Lonzo Ball. They have brought in Larry Nance Jr. as a backup big. They drafted Tyrese Proctor. And then Thomas Bryant is on this roster as well. I don't totally know what that contract looks like from a guarantee perspective. But
Spot Track says $0 guaranteed.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see just like what they do with that kind of. That feels like one of those things where there might be an agreement to do it or not do it. I don't know. But we're sitting here and it is 56.5, the number that we have to talk about. Bryce, I will start with you.
Yeah. So I want to be very clear because I'm going to go under and fans are going to be mad at me. And I want to be clear that I still think Cleveland will be the #1 seed. If you made me pick today, I would pick them to come out of the Eastern Conference. I love Mobley. I love Mitchell. I love Allen. I love Sam Merrill. I really like this team. But Garland is dealing with something here to start the year. Strus is dealing with something for sure to start the year. I don't know that we know that Garland is missing time necessarily, but he's at least dealing with something right now. And ultimately what I decided, again, without trying to spoil too much, is that I think we're going to have 3 50-win teams in the East, and I think it's going to be a little bit sandwiched between those 3. So I don't think they're all of a sudden going to win 49 or barely get over 50. I think they probably win 54, 55. But I do wonder if this is a team that's now in a situation where they've done it in the regular season. They won 64 games last year. This is a team that should be solely focused on doing it in the playoffs. And I wonder if maybe that means they give a little bit in the regular season, win a handful less games, and that means they may still go over. But I wanted to have an even break. I know it can't be perfect, but I wanted 7 and 8, one way or the other. And so this was the team at the top that I gave a little bit and went with an under on.
Andrew.
I'm going over. I do hear you, Bryce, that they could still win like the 1 seed and not hit the over here. In fact, if they win 57 games this season, which would be the over, it would be the first time they won back-to-back 57-win seasons since the last 2 years of LeBron, the first time he was in Cleveland, 2009 and 2010. I keep going back to the fact that they have 10 guys I could see contributing to a playoff rotation, which is already enough depth for the regular season to utilize your entire roster without overtaxing their stars. In fact, the most impressive number for me last year wasn't even the games played by Mitchell and Garland and all of them. It was the minutes played. Donovan Mitchell had 31.4 minutes per game, which was 61st in the NBA, and he was the only one that averaged at least 31 minutes on the team. He was one of 9. They were one of 9 teams that had a guy average, one guy averaged 31 minutes, and it's Memphis, who had a ton of injuries, Charlotte, Washington, Utah, Philly, San Antonio, Orlando, and then Golden State. So Golden State and Cleveland are the only 2 teams that made the playoffs, and the rest are all teams that were either ravaged by injuries or just were bad and didn't have a reason to play a guy 31 minutes. They could lose 7 more games than they did last year and still hit the over. So I think they earn the credibility for me to at least say the over will hit, even if it is a 57 and 58 win season.
So what I tried to think about here was just how strong is the infrastructure that Kenny Atkinson has built, right? Because that's kind of what it came down to for me. I do think they're going to be the number 1 seed in the East. Is the infrastructure just strong enough to withstand injuries in season to guys like Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell? You know, maybe Jared Allen doesn't play 82 again. Maybe he plays 75 or 70 even, right? But what happens if Evan Mobley plays 75 like he played 71 last year? They did stay very healthy. In this year, I think automatically they're probably not going to be as healthy given the Garland issue that is, you know, kind of continuing entering the season. I think that where I ended up on it is I did go over. This is not one that I would like bet on by any stretch. I think it's going to be pretty close in terms of it. I do think that they don't win 64. I think that they do end up in that like 55 to 60 win area, because I do just trust what they've built structurally in the regular season in terms of Kenny Atkinson and his ability to have this very high tempo offense. Now, like, what happens when Darius Garland like misses, you know, the first part of the season potentially, assuming he does, like they kind of take it a little bit slower with him in terms of his recovery. Maybe there's a chance that because they aren't as capable of getting out in transition, that the offense ends up more like, you know, 6th or 7th in the league versus number 1 last year, which is what they were. And maybe the fact that, you know, Donovan Mitchell, you know, has to run the show, maybe it tires him out a little bit early in the season, and they end up kind of going a little bit, you know, slower later in the year with him, and maybe trying to get him some rest at the midpoint marks of the year where they can. You know, there's a lot to kind of sort through here with this number. I do just kind of trust what they've built at the end of the day. I think that Kenny Atkinson has just built a really strong offensive infrastructure now that is going to allow them to have like a pretty high floor night in, night out, to where, look, like the conference is just less talented than it's been. Milwaukee, I think, is a worse team. I think the Celtics are obviously a worse team. The Pacers are a worse team. We will get to, you know, teams like the Heat and the Pistons and some other groups like that. But I think that they get into that 55 to 60 win zone. I am going to take the over. This is not one that I feel super strongly about, though. I think it's just, I think the number is about right.
Yeah, for what it's worth, this is one that I'm going to go against. I referenced this a couple weeks ago when you said we were going to do this. I recently did a quick little data over the last 4 seasons where 82 games were played and the average win total of each seed in each conference. So real quick, those numbers for the number 1 seed in the East, the average win total is 59.8 with a max of 64 and a min of 53. So I am very much going against what the data says, and I realize that. And I won't do that with very many of these. I kind of wanted to have some fun and stay true to it as much as possible. But again, I also didn't want to have, if I would have stayed true to that, I would have had like 10 overs and 5 unders, and I wanted to be a little bit more 50-50. So I understand I'm kind of bucking the trend and of the last 4 years and what the number 1 seed usually wins.
Okay. Next up, the New York Knicks. Andrew, I will give you the first word on your beautiful New York Knickerbockers. Their over-under win total is 53.5. Andrew.
Well,
your New York Knicks.
My New York Knicks. So every move they've made this offseason has been them leaning into offense. There's no Precious Achiuwa on this team. There's no Tom Thibodeau this season. The fact that they're now looking at Landry Shamet and Malcolm Brogdon and Jordan Clarkson and I mean, we're staring at a starting lineup decision that I think is going to be Mitchell Robinson, but even more so, like Josh Hart going back to the bench will be a thing that potentially helps the defense, but also boosts the offense even more so. And I'm going over. It's not a significant over, and I know that anybody watch this will be shocked that I'm taking the over on the New York Knicks, but they went 51-31 last season despite losing Jalen Brunson for a month, having no depth for the first 2.5 months. Like Shamet tore dislocated his shoulder in the preseason. Precious Achiuwa didn't play because He blames Tibbs for having him pulling his hamstring. I would argue playing 40 minutes in a preseason game might have something to do with that. And we're talking about Landry Shaman and Precious Achua. Like, now they have improved depth and a structure and a plan in place that's not going to overtax their stars throughout the season. So they didn't have depth the first 2.5 months, and they played an ineffective starting lineup for the entire season. This lineup of Bridges, Brunson, Hart, Anunoby, and Cat in 1,850 possessions, which led the NBA by about 450 possessions, was a +4 net, which is like, it's fine. It's not great. It's just mid. And by the end of the season, it was just bad. It's a 51st percentile according to Clean the Glass, and 13th of those 20. There's 22 lineups that played at least 500 possessions, and the Knicks finished 13th in net rating by playing it as much as possible. I'm taking the over because they just need to win 3 more games than they did last year with, I think, a much more effective plan in place. The playoffs will be a different story. I do have a lot of concerns, which is what I was alluding to, Bryce, where I think the Knicks are very built for regular season success, and I don't think they solved their biggest playoff issue. So while the regular season is an over I'm taking, I do have my worries and skepticism about if their ceiling is still as high come postseason time.
Yep, I'll go over as well. The slightest of overs. Real quick, the data says the number 2 seed in the East will win 54.8 games with a max of 61, a min of 50. 2 of the last 4 years have been over this number. 2 of the last 4 years have been under this number. I kind of alluded to this at the top. I think the top 3 teams for me are going to be somewhat sandwiched above 50 wins, because I do think, we're going to have 3 50-win teams, which usually happens, or at least has over the last 4 years. So, I mean, I don't think this is a hard over or a heavy over, but, 54, 55 wins is where I'm going to go.
Can I have one more point, Sam? Because I just, again, to the depth issue and the no longer Tibbs of this team. This team was 24th in fourth quarter net rating last season. They had Josh Hart and Anunoby and Bridges, 3 of the top 6 in minutes played last season. So guys are just running out of gas come fourth quarter. I think we just can make that conclusion at this point. And then Josh Hart made some comments during media day that he believes he's a starter in this league and he should start, but he understands if the team goes a different way. I think last year actually proved that he's not a starter. Like, the more you play him, the more you expose some of his weaknesses.
This is not the direction I expected you to go on Josh Hart, because I know how much you love Josh Hart.
I do. I think in shorter spurts, he's more effective, because then teams can't game plan around his inability to shoot and his non-willingness to shoot. And the data shows that in the 882 possessions that Brunson played without Josh Hart, the Knicks had 122 offensive rating. And in the 1,000 possessions that Cat played without Josh Hart, the Knicks had a 119 offensive rating. We're +9 and +6 in both of those stretches. And in the 2 seasons before Josh Hart became the unequivocated starter for Tom Thibodeau over the last year and a half that Tibbs was there, in the 2 seasons before that, he personally was +10 in 23-24 coming off the bench, and +11 in 22-23 coming off the bench. He wasn't underperforming. He was overexposed. And I think going back to being a 25-minute player will actually really help him. Wait till we get to awards. Josh Hart will be very high up my 6th man of the year conversation. So that's where I'm going. I think they're going to be deployed much better this year.
The nice thing is Mitchell Robinson helps with the spacing issues in the starting lineup. So,
which is why I think they should go to Deuce McBride as the starter.
In the regular season, how many minutes do you think Karl Towns, Jalen Brunson, and Mitchell Robinson played together?
Oh,
Mitch barely played.
Last season, how many did they play? Mitch played 17 games, so probably not a lot.
Yeah.
50, 100?
2. In the playoffs, they played 98 minutes together.
Okay.
They did have a 120 offensive rating, but the Towns, Brunson, Mitch lineup did give up a lot of points in those minutes, which is interesting to me. I'm kind of assuming it's going to be Mitch as the starter as well, just based off of everything that we've, kind of seemingly seen out of there so far. I think the depth is a key factor here. I am going over. I am with you guys that I do think that the over is the play. Whatever you want to say about Tibbs, and here's why this is not a play for me. And like, this is not something that I feel super strongly about, but I am going to say over. Tibbs is a good regular season coach. He does get the most out of his teams in the regular season. Like, you can go back through his history. It's just the reality of his planning, his scheme, everything that he does. It is kind of built to win regular season games. I do think the depth factor is really important this year. Getting Gershon Yabusele is one of the more underrated signings, in my opinion, of this offseason, if only because he gives them a little bit more flexibility. I almost really like the idea of taking Towns off the court early in games, like right around like the 8-minute mark or so, bringing in Yabusele, letting him play with Mitch, and then bringing Towns back at like the 2-minute mark of the first quarter and just kind of let Towns like crush bench units. Like, that would actually, I think, be a really interesting idea for the Knicks to employ. Obviously this year they have a little bit more guard depth. You know, say whatever you will about Jordan Clarkson's struggles. He is just kind of better to me than Campaign and some of the other guys that really did have to play last year. I think that Tyler Kolek might have a chance to play. Like, I'm generally a Kolek guy. Like, I think that he can go a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. But I think that the depth is a key factor here. And I think the Yabusele piece of it is the biggest factor here. Him being the 7th man, and then, or maybe the 8th man, I guess, and Deuce being the 7th man or whatever, I think gives them just a few more bodies in terms of what they needed to be able to take the wear and tear off of those guys, kind of like Andrew said. Let's go over for all three of us on the Knicks. Is that right?
All three of us over on the Knicks.
Okay. Okay.
This
is a Knicks forward podcast is where we're at now.
I maintain, I don't think they solved their biggest playoff issue, which is how teams will attack Brunson and Cat in the weaknesses in their defense come playoff time. I would start Deuce McBride. I think if you go to their lineups that were used last year, which is why I have to just reiterate that Josh Hart plus those other 4 starting 5 and how ineffective it became by the playoffs, it was a negative from January 1st on. The Deuce plus the starters in place of Josh Hart, it has an insane, who knows how sustainable net rating it is. We saw 88 possessions of it. It's their one true 5-out lineup. Tim just refused to do it because of how much he loves all the things that Josh Hart does. Mike Brown now maybe leading into what you get Karl Anthony Towns for, which is to play 5-out for 6 minutes a half, 7 minutes a half. I think it's going to lead to more regular season success that doesn't force them to overtax guys and play so many clutch games and be sweating out the Wizards in December. No disrespect to the Wizards, but Brunson had to play 45 minutes.
We're probably going to disrespect the Wizards again on this podcast.
Much later. Yeah.
So.
Sure. Just wait till we get to the Nets. All right. So that's more, I do like have concerns come playoff time. I actually do think they're built from a coaching and from a depth standpoint to be better during the regular season this year.
The Orlando Magic are up next. The Orlando Magic last year won 41 games and were just absolutely decimated by injuries throughout the year. Paulo Banchero plays 46 games. Franz Wagner, 60 games. Jalen Suggs, 35 games. Mo Wagner tore his ACL. He only played 30 games last year. They go out. They get healthier, first and foremost. They trade for Desmond Bane, a guy who generally just plays, by and large, is the other key thing with him. Guys who played the most minutes last year on the Orlando Magic. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Franz Wagner, Anthony Black, Wendell Carter Jr., Tristan Da Silva.
Rookie.
And then you get to Paulo at 6, Goga Batadze at 7, Cole Anthony at 8. And this team still won 41 games last year.
They got 1,500 minutes of Caleb Houston and Jet Howard, and we're starting, with all due respect, one of my favorite pregame shooting routines to watch, they started Corey Joseph down the stretch and into the playoffs last year. With all due respect to Corey Joseph.
This is a team that brought in, obviously, Bane, as I mentioned, but also Tyus Jones to man the backup point guard. They draft Jace Richardson. They draft Noah Penda. You know, they have Orlando Robinson and Jamal Cain, both of whom are like older two-way guys that, you know, might be able to steal minutes here and there if necessary depth-wise, but I think the hope is that they won't have to. Their total this year is 50.5. And guys, I got to tell you, we're cranking it up. We're going I'm going over on this, and I feel pretty good about an over on the Orlando Magic here this year.
So I'm over as well. Real quick, the data here says that the third ranked team in the Eastern Conference would win an average of 51.3 games. Only once in the last 4 years has the third ranked team not won at least 50. And actually only once in the last 4 years has the fourth place team not won 50 games. Has a high of 54, a low of 49 in the third spot. I like this Orlando team. I think they're going to be better. You have to think at some point they get healthier and have a healthy season. This was a fairly easy over for me as well, and was the third team, as I've referenced multiple times now, that I think gets above 50 wins of this trio.
Andrew.
I'm also going over. Last year's a bit of a wash because of how many injuries they sustained. So I had to use 2 years ago as my data points. This team 2 years ago finished third in defense and 22nd in offense. 30th over the last 2 seasons in 3-pointers made per game and 3-point percentage. I expect both of those numbers to be better this season. And if you're conceding a little bit on the defensive end, say they go from 3rd to 5th and they go from 22nd to 16th, how is that not better than the 3 more wins they need to hit their over from 2 years ago when they won 47 games? So I do think the number is like 50 or 51. They solidly a 3 or 4 seed, but that plus potentially another Paolo leap into second team all NBA where he's gone up every year in points, rebounds, free throw attempts, and effective field goal percentage. And now he's playing with one of the best floor spacers in the league. I went over on the Orlando Magic.
I'm absolutely going over on the Orlando Magic, and I think that they have a real shot to be like the 2 seed in the East this year. That wouldn't blow my mind if they end up even passing the Knicks, if only because it's a totally different coaching staff this year with the Knicks. I think all of these teams win 50 games. I think Orlando has like a real chance to get up around that like 55 win mark. Honestly, they're just very deep and very skilled, and they have a real, infrastructure of defense. They have an identity at the end of the day. Now, like, am I a little bit worried about Jalen Suggs like immediately coming back? Yeah, like I think Jalen Suggs is really important to that defensive identity. But they did go out and they got Tyus Jones to be able to run second units and to be able to step into the starting lineup in case Jalen Suggs needs a little bit more time to be able to come back. And there just aren't many better backup point guards in the league than Tyus Jones. And you throw Tyus Jones with Desmond Bane, Paulo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and then whatever you want to do at the big position, be it Wendell Carter, who's a really good defender who can occasionally step out and shoot, but that hasn't really come along in the way we hoped. Also, Goga Batadze, who is a fantastic defender on the interior, and Jonathan Isaac, who, is going to have to be, minute managed as he always is at this point in his career. But again, just a fantastic defensive basketball player when he's out on the court. I think there's just a lot of reason to buy into this.
Suggs also only has to be the 4th option on offense, Sam. Like he's going to be able to keep a lot of energy and, for the defensive end to come back and be that level of player, which is another part of the Bane trade where, like, I'm not saying this in a negative way, but, like those other 3 guys are going to take the bulk of the offensive load, and he's never going to have to be out there doing it by himself. Like there's always one of Paulo, Franz, or Bane on the floor with him. So I think he's going to have a real chance to be his best possible version on the defensive end because of the lack of offensive energy they will need from him night in and night out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this team's just going to be awesome. Like they couldn't have gotten more snake bitten by injury last year, and we're still sitting here at 41 wins somehow, and they made the playoffs. Again, I think big leap from Paulo. We talked about him on the Breakout Players episode we did last week. I think huge season from Paulo. I think the world of Franz Wagner, as I think most of the longtime listeners of the show know. I think he's going to be an all-NBA, all-star kind of guy at some point. Yeah, I mean, this is just a big-time team to me. I love the fact, though, that most importantly, they come into the season with like a real identity and a real infrastructure to where you don't have to fix things. Desmond Bane should be purely additive, in my opinion, to what they already do, as opposed to like somebody who comes in and demands the ball and like you have to figure out how to make it work and share the ball and everything. I kind of think that Bane's just going to be able to, especially if Suggs is out early on, Bane's just going to be able to really create here and there and play on the ball a little bit along with Tyus. And then you have Paulo, who's going to be able to play on the ball as well. You're going to be able to run all sorts of creative actions with Paulo and Bane and Franz and Bane and everything. Like Bane should be running, like Bane should be screening a lot as they continue to like invert different actions and structures to me. I hope that they have a creative enough offensive mind on the bench to be able to figure all this out. But I think that it's not that hard to figure out now that they have like a real spacing weapon in Bane. I am like truly excited about the Orlando Magic this year. They, again, one of the teams I'm most looking forward to watching just absolutely this year.
Also not a sieve on defense. Like he's going to be fine on that end of the floor guarding the, I mean, I guess maybe you could quite when it is Jones, like the, you know, there can be a few questions there. But he's going to be fine. Additive is a great word for him.
Yep. Okay. Next up, another team that we've talked a lot about this offseason, the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks won 40 games in 2024-25, and they have gone out and they have added in a big way. They have gotten Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They have gone out and gotten Jalen Johnson back from injury, obviously, which is important. But most essentially, they have gotten Kristaps Porzingis into this group, who has been, when he's been on the court, a real driver of winning basketball the last couple of years for the Boston Celtics. Their total is 46.5. This is a team we've talked about a lot this offseason. We've talked very positively about them this offseason, Bryce. Where are you at on the Atlanta Hawks?
So let me ask you this, guys. What do you think is the lowest total wins for a number 4 seed in the Eastern Conference over the last 4 seasons?
I would guess it's in the like 47-ish ballpark.
Are we not including the COVID shortened 72 win season?
I just went the last 4.
So does that? So it's the year after that season.
Yeah. That's why That's why I only did 4 years. So I didn't have to do the math and project out over 82 games and all of that.
Is the lowest possible?
I mean, just of those 4 years.
Is it 40? Is it 49?
It's 48. 48 is the 48. The average is 50 wins for the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference over the last 4 years with a low of 48. I think the Atlanta Hawks right now, I've been super high on them, as Sam referenced. We talked about the Trae Young and building a roster around Trae Young and Jalen Johnson. We didn't even mention Luke Kennard as an addition on this team as well. We have talked about like if it goes wrong, where it could go wrong. But with that said, based on where I think this team is in the East, based on how much I liked this team and excited for them, and the data that says that you're going to win at least 48 games, I'm going to take the over on Atlanta here at 46.5. Not by a lot. I don't think they join those other teams as a 4th 50-win team, but I will take the over at this number of 46.5.
Andrew?
I'm over 2. A lot of the reasons that Bryce mentioned. I'm projecting a very big season for Trae Young. No one has ever averaged 25 and 12, and he's come close a few times. In fact, the only players to average 25 and 11 are Michael Adams, Tiny Archibald, James Harden, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Russell Westbrook, Oscar Robertson, and Trae Young. And Trae's done it twice. So you add in the fact that, and this is where I'm just going to get a little nerdy with the data, like you go to the pass tracking stats on NBA.com and you go to potential assists, and Trae's always up around 20. Like he always leads the league in potential assists because of how much his ability to get downhill and his ability in the pick and roll to draw people to the ball and dish out to people it leaves people open for shots. You add in that Jalen Johnson will hopefully be healthy this year. The Dyson Daniels, who shot 38% from three after the All-Star break, might be better. That Ricochet takes another leap as a pro. He shot 41% from three after the All-Star break last year. And now for the first time in Trey's career, he's playing with a true stretch five and one of the best ever. If they get 40 to 41 games out of Porzingis, this is going to be one of the more lethal offenses in the league. And it's a surefire over for me. So that's 2 for 2 so far.
So look, I'm going to take the over. I do just want to like lay out how this fails, right? If it does. I think that this fails. If Trae Young gets hurt, like if Trae gets hurt, like, you know, all bets are off, right? But by and large, Trae's been pretty healthy throughout the course of his career. Kristaps getting hurt would be a problem. Like, I think that would undeniably be an issue, but they do have the ability to like kind of make up for that a little bit with Onyeka Okongwu off the bench, obviously. Part of the reason that I'm feeling good about this over is that depth, the fact that they can bring Okongwu off the bench and they can, you know, have him as a depth option in case Porzingis gets hurt. I think that's really important. I like the idea of the lineup flexibility that they have. I think that they can go really big if they want to. They can go if, you know, I'm not saying this would be like ideal necessarily, but there are probably matchups where you could do this, where you go with the Porzingis Okongwu lineup and just kind of crush the glass. And then Okongwu's like kind of spacing a little bit now. You know, you might be able to like run some like double drags where Onyeka is diving to the rim and KP's popping, and then you have Trae Young like getting into that floater range, and then you have two shooters out on the wings. Maybe it's, you know, Ricochet and it's Luke Kennard or something, and that's how you kind of infrastructure, you know, make Luke Kennard work on defenses with the two big structure on the defensive end, right? So you're kind of stopping anything around the basket. And then on top of it, they can go small if they want to. Like KP essentially is a small, you know, on offense because of his ability to shoot. And then you can just play like your normal lineup of Jalen Johnson, Ricochet, Dyson Daniels, and Trae Young. And, you know, that's playing skilled small basketball while not actually being small on the court. It's kind of the thing, because Dyson's 6'7", Ricochet is 6'9", you know, Jalen Johnson 6'8" to 6'9". I love the flexibility that they have lineup wise. Injury concerns are real because this team doesn't have a ton of depth. They especially don't have a ton of depth at the point guard position right now, past Trae Young. But I think that if they're healthy, this team is going to win a lot of games. I think if they're healthy, they're going to win a lot of games this year. And I think that I'm going over. And I think like I feel good about this over as well. The first three teams are the teams that I think are like, you know, probably the top three teams in the East. Atlanta is the one team that I feel like, okay, they're really like the 4 for me. I don't have another team that is, you know, really in their group. Like the next teams are kind of in a tier here by themselves. And it is very interesting to me to kind of talk, as we'll talk through those, why I feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, I have them below the top 3. And I kind of have them grouped with the next couple teams where I think that we're going to talk about. But I'm with you, Sam, that I would have Atlanta like they are very much the leader. Like it's for the sake of not having a team in a tier by its own, essentially, which I think I would agree with you that if you said like, hey, like, do you really think they're in the same tier as the Pistons and the Bucks? I would probably tell you no. It's just like, I don't want that many lines on my Google sheet. And so I just remind myself that there's like a little bit of a, who's notorious for the half tiers and the quarter tier? Is it Hollinger or somebody like that has like tiers within tiers or something? I don't know. Hoop Collective always makes fun of somebody.
The Seth Greenberg tiers of
yeah. It's Greenberg.
We got tier 2 B, C
That's
in the ACC.
Yeah. It's Greenberg that does tier 2A, 2B, 2C. Like for out of respect for not doing that. I have them in the next, but yeah, I felt pretty good about this. And then the data that I looked at over the last 4 seasons just made me feel better.
Okay.
Real quick, I have all 4 teams winning 50 games this year.
Oh, nice.
At least 50 games. So I have 4 50-win teams in the East.
For again, for reference, 3 of the last 4 seasons, that has happened. 3 of the last 4 seasons, there have been 4 50-win teams in the Eastern Conference.
even more so, I don't have any team in the East winning 60. So
Yep.
with 2 winning 60 last year, we still got 4 50-win teams in the East.
Correct.
So there's just more wins to go to the middle now.
Yep.
Next up, the Detroit Pistons. The Detroit Pistons won 44 games last year after an awesome kind of turnaround mid-season where they really started to dominate games on the defensive end, particularly when Asar Thompson came back. They really pushed the New York Knicks in the playoffs. Last season, only 30 games from Jaden Ivey. They did get the 28 from Schroeder, who is now in Sacramento. 59 games from Asar Thompson at 22 minutes a night, I think is worth bringing up as well. However, they lose Malik Beasley. They lose Tim Hardaway Jr. They replace them with Karis LeVert, Duncan Robinson. I'm very interested to have this conversation because I really love this Pistons team. As I think a lot of people know, Bryce obviously talks about the Pistons every week on his show. I'm a little bit more worried about them than what I want to be, unfortunately. So Bryce, try to talk me off the ledge a little bit.
Yeah. So real quick to give my answer, I went over and I don't feel great about it. This is just the data. So I have Detroit as the 5th team in the East. Over the last 4 years, the 5th team in the East has won 48, 47, 47, 48. And so if I think Detroit is the 5th team in the East, the last 4 years tells me they're going to go slightly over this number. And so I will very slightly go over this number. My argument for that, if I want to keep it positive, is I do think Cade Cunningham is a perennial all-NBA player. I think he should have been second team all-NBA last year. I think he's only going to get better. And he's a real two-way player. Cade Cunningham plays defense for a guy that takes as much offensive usage as what he does. My second argument is Asar Thompson is coming off a offseason of blood clots where he was on some sort of minutes restriction, whether the team says that or not. That's my opinion.
In 2024 offseason.
Yeah, last offseason, to be clear. And now
offseason.
he's fully healthy this offseason, off a playoff run, all of that. And then here is my biggest pitch. I think either Jaden Ivey or Asar or Ron or whoever takes the leap into kind of that second star, or they make a move at the deadline to go acquire that player. Like, I think, if after 50 games, it's like, nope, J.I. either doesn't belong on this team or is going to go be the 6th man. Ron Holland hasn't, he's not going to catapult into that, but he's not showing it. Then I think that Trajan will be aggressive. I'm not saying he'll win, but they have control over all their draft picks now. They have a bunch of extra second-round picks. They have money on the books to get you to certain numbers to go get a player. And so I think that they're going to be aggressive, whether, again, either a JI is averaging 20 a game, or I think they may go try to acquire that player at the deadline if he's not. My biggest worry, Sam, and I think we've talked about it, Duncan Robinson is vitally important to this team. I don't think what people realize, I really don't think people realize what Malik Beasley did last year. He played in every single game and shot the absolute heck out of the basketball, over 40% on insane volume. So Malik Beasley probably wasn't going to do that again. Duncan Robinson has to do 85 to 90% of that. So if he's injured or whatever, this team has real spacing concerns again all of a sudden, and that is scary. And if somebody was going to take the under, that would be one of the first things I would bring up.
Andrew, go ahead.
So you led right perfectly into why I'm hesitant to take the over and leaning toward the under.
Sure,
Bryce. The fact that you had to replace Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. with Duncan Robinson and LeVert. I think LeVert for Timmy, you could argue it's an upgrade. You could argue it's lateral. I think both are very fine 7th men on this team. What Malik Beasley was last year was like borderline peak Klay Thompson stuff. And the fact that he's not there and you're counting on Duncan Robinson, who was in and out of a Miami rotation over the past 4 seasons, it would very much concern me, especially not just from a spacing standpoint. Like if he's on the court and not what Malik Beasley was last year, that is a target on defense all of a sudden. I do like that they have this 33-21 stretch of over more than half the season from last year you can point to and say that's sustainable. Like what they succeeded at, they were 6th in offense, 8th in defense during that stretch last year. I have a lot of questions, not even concerns, questions about the Cade, Ivy, Asar, Duran pairing. We don't have a large sample.
Levert as well is a big thing for me here too. Like I don't know what that totally looks like.
Well, so I'm more just going to like the 4 young players that are their core. We don't have a large sample of them playing together as this developed version of themselves and succeeding. They played 12 possessions together last season before Ivy got hurt. And the year before, they were all playing under Monty Williams, which I'll let you do with you what you want with that sample.
They weren't playing together because Killian Hayes was starting. That's all people need to know.
Even more of a reason why you can't really use the 23-24 data. Look, I'm going the over because of Cade. I also, as someone who spent a lot of time watching intently that Knicks and Pistons series over and over again, they should have eliminated the Knicks last year. And I have to think that experience will do them well. There's just a lot of things that went right in the regular season for them last year that I don't know will go right this year. But this is where, to use your one of your favorite terms, Bryce, I'm interested in collecting some data on the Pistons and seeing what those 4 young players together, and if Duncan Robinson can be that 5th, or Levert can be that 5th, or Tobias Harris can be that 5th, will they take any hint of a step forward? I do have them at 46 wins exactly, so it's barely over, but I'll take the over out of respect for what they did to the Knicks last year.
So few just like stat numbers here. So in that 2023-24 season, when the Pistons were just egregiously terrible and won 14 games, right? There were 339 minutes of Cade, Ivy, Duran, and Asar together. Bryce, do you know what they were in those minutes?
I mean, it has to be a negative, right? Were they a positive?
It was negative.
Okay.
Yeah, it was negative.
Negative 1.4.
Wow.
It was not bad.
Okay.
Yeah, it was actually like pretty good together. I am fairly worried about the shooting. If it was only Beasley, and look, like, we don't know what's going on with Beasley. Like, I guess in theory he could re-sign there. Like, we just don't know any information right now in terms of what's going to happen with him.
I want to get just real quick reference on the team in general, just so people know. Here's why it's so important. Even with all of this Beasley talk and Tim Hardaway Jr., they were still 22nd in the NBA in 3-point attempts and 17th in 3-point percentage. So like, this is why this is worrisome, is Malik Beasley had a historic season and they were still very much middle of the pack at best.
And I would not look, I don't want to overstate what Tim Hardaway Jr. is. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
But I would not dismiss Tim Hardaway Jr. Like, between those 2 players, they took 1,223 threes last year and made 39.8% of them. That's a ton of
they made half
production going out the window.
They made half of the team's threes last year. That's the way to say it.
Yes.
Those guys made probably 45%. Is the actual?
I think it's literally 45%. Yeah. So to just assume that Duncan Robinson can come in and replace that kind of production, and I don't think they're necessarily assuming that, but like, it's a big ask to me.
Yeah, it's fair. Go under.
I am going under.
I knew it.
I am going under. I think they make the playoffs, to be clear. Like, I think that they are, 40, somewhere between like 42 and 44. Honestly, like, I think they have a winning season. It's just, to me, like, I think there are a few teams that are going to go under, and I think that this team is more like in this group with, the Bucks, the Sixers. We'll talk about another team that I think people will be surprised that I have in this group, but like, I just have enough questions. I think they could blow past this. Like, if the kids end up being really good, if Ivy ends up being like ready to go, and Asar ends up being like taking a massive leap, right? Wouldn't blow my mind at all if they end up going way beyond this. But I think there are enough questions here. Plus, like, if Cade misses any time, I mean, I just don't know. I guess that the creation can come from Levert and Ivy a little bit, but I guess maybe they are like a little bit more well positioned to deal with Cade being out, but not super well positioned, obviously. I think they could maybe survive a few games here and there. But I am going to go under by a couple of wins here. I think it's right in the ballpark. I don't feel great about it. This is not one that I feel like super strongly about. We honestly haven't gotten to one outside of maybe the Hawks that I feel quite strongly about. But I am going to be the one who like kind of rains on the parade a little bit, unfortunately, here.
I'm cool with it.
In a different
Okay.
East, I would take the under. I think just this East,
Yeah.
it's more attainable to get 46 wins as this team, you know.
I think that is true. Okay, next up, the Milwaukee Bucks are a completely different team than what we saw last year. They won 48 games last year. They were, I mean, first and foremost, they were like a real mess to watch. We just need to be like transparent and honest about that. They were the 12th best defense and the 11th best offense, which doesn't sound terrible on its face, but they got 58 games from Damian Lillard that included 2,000 minutes of basketball. Brook Lopez is gone. You know, that's 2,500 minutes. He actually played the most minutes on the team last year. Kyle Kuzma played 1,000 minutes for this team last year. That's going to increase.
Are we sure?
Your
Did he
mileage
play?
may vary on how excited you are about that. This season, big difference in terms of roster and structure. It's a bit of like a changeover in their long-term strategy. They have Miles Turner, who they signed and traded for, or I guess just signed in free agency, now thinking about it, from the Indiana Pacers. A lot of these guys were on the team last year, but Kevin Porter Jr., Ryan Rollins, and Gary Trent are going to have to really step up offensively this year because Damian Lillard has his torn Achilles. He is also not on this roster anymore after having been stretched in order to sign the Miles Turner deal. They bring in Gary Harris. They bring in Cole Anthony. Like, the big one is Turner, but I think we're going in assuming that the starters are Kevin Porter Jr., Kyle Kuzma, Giannis, Miles Turner, and then I would guess one of Ryan Rollins or AJ Green would be my vibe. I don't feel great about this, boys. I'm sorry to Milwaukee fans, but I don't feel great on this one. Andrew, you can go first here this time.
I don't feel great about this roster either. Who's starting a point guard for them? Is it Ryan Rollins? Is it Kevin Porter
I'm
Jr.?
assuming it's Kevin Porter will be like the
Giannis.
primary ball handler.
So I will just say, when they signed.
By the way, in
ahead.
terms of over under this year, I haven't mentioned the number. The number is 43.5. They have to win 44 games for this to go over.
Which will inform where I go with this. So they did go 20-10 the end of the season, which means nothing. Just to be clear, that 30-game sample does mean nothing. But after they signed Kevin Porter Jr. at the end of last season, they did go 20-10 to close the season strong to get to that 48 win number. I don't have a lot of confidence in this roster. I think they have the best player in the conference, and I think we'll talk about the Celtics in a bit. But with the Celtics compromised and with the Pacers compromised, the question I kept asking myself when I came to the Bucks is Giannis not winning 44 games? And that's the over.
Yeah.
Is Giannis not winning 44 games? The last time the Bucks won less than 44 games, Jason Kidd was the head coach. So this is a bet on Giannis, and it could very easily, with an injury, be the way under. I have to think that Giannis, who I think will finish first team All-NBA, top 4 in MVP, and show how valuable he is before we have the summer of Giannis next summer. I'm going to
be clear.
Yeah.
I think every minute that Giannis plays, they play at a pace over the 44 win total number.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am in no way, shape, or form worried about the Giannis minutes.
It's the only reason I'm taking the over, because the under is so like attractive and plausible. And I as much as I like that he's still going to play with a stretch 5, and I think Miles Turner had a down year, but will not be asked as much as he was now, just having to be next to Giannis and protect the rim in the Brook Lopez role. I'm taking the over. I recognize how the path to the under exists. This is a bet on Giannis that Giannis will win at least 44 games this year.
So first thing, every time we talk about Kyle Kuzma, I just think about him being on the Dallas Mavericks and how different our world would be. And so I hope when sometime in an alternate universe, we get to see what that would have played if he wouldn't have exercised his no trade clause that he didn't have. Here's the thing. I agree with everything GMAC said. I'm going over because of Giannis. Also, the data says I have the Bucks as the 6th team in the East. The data says that team wins on average 45.5 games. No team has won less than 44 games as the number 6 team in the East. And only one time over the last 4 years has the number 7 seed won under 43.5 games. And only twice over the last 4 years has the number 8 seed won less than 43.5 games. So since I think Milwaukee is in this range, and I just think Giannis is one of the best 4 or 5, if not higher players in the world, I will bet on Giannis and take the over very, very not excitedly, whatever that word is.
High five, Bryce.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going under. Giannis in the last, what would this be? Since 2021. And this was the year that they played 72 games, this first year. So remember that as I say this. 61 games, 67 games, 63 games, 73 games, 67 games. I think him missing 15 games results in this going under. Like, I don't see how this team wins. If he misses 15, I don't see how this team wins more than 5 games, if that's the case. So then we're starting at like 5 and 10 in the Giannis games, right? So they would then, to go over this number, have to win 39 of 67 games, which is like a 58%, like a 58 win percentage, right? That's a large number, guys. Like, that's a big number. Like, if you compare that out to 82, that's like a 48 win team.
48 wins. Yep.
That's a huge number for me to get out to if we just work under the assumption, like for the last 5-6 years of Giannis's career, that, you know, he's probably not going to play every game. He's probably going to miss 10 to 15 in there somewhere. If he plays 75, I think they probably do go over. I just don't know if I feel great about him playing 75, especially if this starts to turn early in the season and they go, well, you know, let's like kind of shut Giannis down, like preserve the asset or whatever. And I'm not saying I want to see this. Like, I don't want to see this. I'm not excited about taking the under for the Bucks, but I think there are more routes to the under than there are to the over, is what I would say. And, you know, look, this is super small sample or whatever. Giannis, Kyle Kuzma, Kevin Porter last year. 103 offensive rating, -6 or -5 in terms of net rating in those minutes. That does not feel ideal to me. I don't really love the idea of Kevin Porter being Giannis's point guard, in my opinion. Like, he's not a shooter. I think their best lineups probably won't include him. I think he's going to put up numbers because he just handles the ball. It's who he is. But I don't know if his game actually meshes with Giannis in like a winning way. So then we're talking in the backcourt. I think that their best duo would probably be Ryan Rollins and AJ Green. And I think AJ Green's like genuinely really good. So I don't mind that portion of it. But then we're talking about a lineup of Rollins, AJ Green, Kuzma, Turner next to Giannis. And then the minutes without Giannis, just because Giannis will only play, let's go super aggressive and say that Giannis plays 35 minutes as opposed to, you know, he played 34 last year. He played 35 this year, right? Like, or the year before. Let's go aggressive and say he plays 35. I mean, what happens in the 13 minutes where he's off the court? Who creates offense for them is a real question to me. So I'm going under. I think there are more pathways to under than over here. It has absolutely nothing to do with Giannis. I agree with Andrew, who said that Giannis is the best player in the conference. I think that's absolutely accurate. He is dominant. He is a force. He is truly continuing to expand his game. The mid-range game is continuing to grow and blossom. His ability to play in transition is absolutely lethal. But like, here's the thing. If I was them, my plan would be I want to like play fast and go up tempo. I don't know how fast is Doc Rivers really going to want to play. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not super convinced of that either. I think there's just such a fundamental mismatch of coach, you know, star player, and then like roster construction here that I just can't really get behind, unfortunately. So I am going to go under. I am intrigued with what happens with the Bucks this year, because that could get very, very tricky, in my opinion. Any thoughts on me being a hater?
No, both of us said our case for the over is Giannis. It's not like we have a strong case for the over.
I'm not gonna fight you that you should believe in the Kyle Kuzma non-Giannis minutes.
Neither of us believe in this Bucks team. We believe in Giannis.
I'm also not gonna fight you that Doc Rivers is gonna coach them to an extra 6 wins.
Right. Can I be totally honest
point.
with you, Sam? The math I did was if Giannis plays 60 games and they go 40-20, they need to win 4 more games. They could go 4 and whatever 18 in the other 22 games. And that's still the over. I think in this East,
and
Giannis can win. Giannis can win 44 games.
And obviously 65 is an important number for you. I mean, it's not as important for Giannis as other people, but like to be, you know, the awards and stuff. So if he has a chance to get to 65 and all of that. So
it's not ideal. Okay. The Philadelphia 76ers are next. Their win total that they have to pass is 42.5. They won 24 last year. Let's just run through minutes played on this roster.
Oh dear.
It should be fun.
Kyle Oubre led the team with 2,100. Tyrese Maxey played 1960. Gershon Yabusele third, 1895. Those are the only 3 players that played 1,500 minutes last season. Paul George, 1,300. Ricky Council in 5th at 1,250. Justin Edwards in 6th at 1155. And those are the only 6 players to play 1,000 minutes for the Philadelphia 76ers last season. Andrew brings up the fact that the New York Mets had 48 pitchers this year. The Philadelphia 76ers had 30 players play for their roster last season, including the legendary 17-minute era of Isaiah Mobley. And we all can't forget the 44-minute era of Philip Wheeler. That's where we're at with the 76ers. This team is, when it's healthy, is markedly different than that. They will have, hopefully, Joel Embiid. They will have Paul George. They will have Tyrese Maxey. They have drafted VJ Edgecombe, who I think has a real chance to be a first-team all-rookie guy who helps you, you know, in some respects win games, certainly with his defensive effort and his athleticism. VJ is also surrounded on the wing by Kelly Oubre, Jared McCain once he gets back from his injury. And then Quentin Grimes is currently not signed, but presumably will be on this team and will play for them, be it the qualifying offer, 1-year balloon payment, whatever may come, right? A lineup of Tyrese Maxey, Quentin Grimes, Paul George, whatever you want to do in terms of, you know, playing bigger or smaller, be it, you know, you want a little bit more length, you go Kelly Oubre, you want a little bit more, you know, skill, you go VJ, lot of different options. In addition to Joel Embiid at the center position, that group should be really good. It's just we have no idea how many minutes that group can play. So this is like a pure stay away from me. I have no interest in betting on this number if I was in that market. But I mean, where are you guys on the actual number here in terms of 42.5 is what you have to get to with the 76ers?
I'm going under. Like I don't trust the roster. McCain, who I love and, you know, was going to have a chance for first team all rookie, if not rookie of the year, if he plays out the whole season. Recently come down with an injury, I believe, on his shooting hand. So he's going to miss time, not come into the year fully healthy. You know, will it be lingering? Will it not? I don't know. But it's like, we're just doing this again. And like, listen, Sam, GMAC, I don't believe Paul George and Joel Embiid are playing until I see Paul George and Joel Embiid actually playing. So I have, this is the ultimate, I'm willing to look like an idiot. I understand there's a world where Tyrese Maxey is awesome. Paul George and Joel Embiid play. Grimes is good. VJ's a solid rookie. McCain, all of that. And they're a top 4 team in the East. I understand there's a world where that happens. Not until I see it on the court. I ain't going to believe it. And here's the other thing. Was Paul George that good last year when he did play games?
Yeah.
Because the Tobias Harris joke really hits whenever you have the opportunity to make it about Paul George right now. So, listen, I love a lot of these dudes. I love Tyrese Maxey. But I'm sorry. I can't bet on him. So I'm going to take the under.
Yeah, Maxey's a dude. The worst part about hating the city of Philadelphia is that I really respect Tyrese Maxey and enjoy watching him play. It's a shame that on this team that I'm also taking the under on, and I'm much more strong on the guarantee. Like if we were doing locks today, I think the chicanery last year of them trying to make sure they had a bottom 6 record is much more likely this season to happen again, with them still having a top 4 protected pick. And we get 40 games into the season. And last year we saw 15 games of Maxey, Embiid, and Paul George playing together, and they went 7-8, and they had a net rating of minus 0.5. It's not like when we saw it, it looked great. When we saw it, it didn't look like anything. It just looked like something that we were trying to figure out.
I mean, I will just say for those minutes, like Joel looked like he couldn't move. Like,
do we have evidence of any other video since the 2024 playoffs that he can move? So I don't have that evidence yet. And until I have it, I'm with Bryce. I'm slamming the under, and I'm much more likely to watch a VJ Edgecombe, Jared McCain, Tyrese Maxey core for the back half of this season, as they like stumble their way to 30+ wins with hope for the future, as they navigate life without Joel Embiid. Look, God bless him. He's had like an up and down career health-wise, but on the court, one of the more dominant players that's ever existed. We're at the other side of like 30 with these types of foot injuries that just don't have a good track record. So while I do give like the 5% chance that they're healthy, the under just seems significantly more plausible for me. So I'm taking the under.
Yeah, I mean, look, like the problem here is that like even like Daryl Morey, it feels like is uncertain on what exactly the timeline is based off of what he's like saying, you know, during like media stuff. And Joel said, you know, just, you know, as a reference here, we've got a plan in place, trying to check all of the boxes. This is still kind of a feel period where we're just taking it day by day. There's been a few court sessions. Everything's on the schedule. That's as of 2 days ago from Kyle Neubeck over in Philadelphia. I also think this is under. Again, I see the pathways to the over. I can absolutely see a world where Tyrese is just a stud and Paul George, you know, just wasn't fully healthy at any point last year. And we get a better version of Paul George and we get a better version of VJ Edgecombe, and Jared McCain is like a psycho competitor worker. And when he gets back from his injury, he looks even better. Like I can absolutely see all of these pathways toward overs for Philadelphia. There are just more pathways where it's an under to me. If we had any indication that Joel's health was real and that we had like a real sense that he was going to play even 30, you know, 35, let's even say 22 minutes a night. Let's go like wildly like aggressive here. If we knew he was going to play like a healthy 22 minutes a night, I would feel probably like this is an over. And I just have no indication of that. Here's the other thing too. Let's say Joel doesn't play. I mean, is Nick Nurse going to lean into Janai Broom, Adem Bona, or is he going to lean into Andre Drummond?
Andre Drummond minutes, baby.
I can't imagine that being a great idea based off of what we saw last year from Andre Drummond. So this one's hard for me because like I really would like the Sixers to be good. All of those dudes have struggled with a ton of injury. I just think there are more pathways toward these guys not being healthy, unfortunately.
When you were just now saying, what if we knew we were getting a healthy 35 to 22 minutes from Embiid?
You thought I was going to say games.
I thought you were going to say games. And even that's optimistic for me at this point. I feel bad for how his career looks like it's trending toward ending. If I had one positive update that like he's been out, now it's trending positive, he's at media day, like when we do the Pelicans later this week, I actually am very encouraged by what the new Zion Williamson is going to look like, because that is a transformation. We don't have that with Embiid. We have no positive prognosis or projection for this season and his health. So I'm not predicting it. I'm going with the data we've been given, which is that version of the Sixers is gone. And now I have an aging Paul George. Maybe he'll be better this year if he does his podcast again. And you have these young players that I have a lot of upside with, but I don't think can win more than 35 games. So that's where the path to the under seems significantly more plausible for me.
Yeah. Okay. This is going to be one of the more interesting conversations now. We're going to the Boston Celtics. Boston Celtics won 60.5 games last year. They were, probably the second best team in the league, I would argue, maybe the third best team in the league in the regular season.
Bryce, we just did the same face.
I love you. Okay. I want you to know that. There's no effing way the Boston Celtics won 60.5 games last year.
There was a half game where the
61.
Celtics won and they declared a win, and then they didn't play their guys in the second half and they declared it a loss. So they went 60.5.
I wish I could have cussed at you right there.
This is not the Ryder Cup win half point.
They went 60.5 and 22.5 last season.
My goodness. What a disaster I am. Okay. 61 wins.
Or 21.5, whatever.
Yeah. They lose Drew Holiday, who they traded for Anthony Simons. They lose Al Horford, who is signed with the Golden State Warriors, or agreed to sign with the Golden State Warriors, rather. They lose Luke Cornett, who signed with the San Antonio Spurs. And most importantly, they lose Jason Tatum for a significant portion of the season. Now, as of this morning, we got a YouTube video of Jason Tatum already working out. I don't know what to make of that. I absolutely cannot imagine the Boston Celtics rushing him back in any way, shape, or form. I can't imagine him playing in the first half of the year at the very least, if not the first 2/3 of the year, 3/4 of the year. Like that, it'd just be completely crazy and goes against anything we know about Achilles tears for him to be back, for a significant portion of the regular season, regardless of where we're at in terms of his, crazy competitiveness and rehab. The number we have to get to is 40.5. The Boston Celtics current starting lineup, if you made me guess: Derek White, Anthony Simons, Jaylen Brown, probably Sam Hauser, and pick your big. My guess would be that they will go Keita, just because he's been around in the scheme for a while. But if you want to tell me Luke Garza wins it in the preseason, if you want to tell me Chris Boucher wins it in the preseason, I'll hear out cases across the board, and we'll be happy to be proven wrong. This one's hard for me because I really respect the infrastructure here, and I think Joe Mazzulla just plays math ball in such a really smart, intelligent way. I also just really do not like the talent here, and I think that if they're around 500 or so, or even a couple games below 500 going into the trade deadline, I would think they will go massive tax avoidance moves in order to try and get under the tax and try to help themselves reset for the future here for when Tatum is back. So I see more pathways to the under, but I also really respect that Derek White is a stud, and getting him more on-ball opportunities really might work. I think Jaylen Brown is probably ready to be a number one option, and we'll see what that looks like in terms of his efficiency. I do just have significant concerns about the interior here more than anything else.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I just think there's I think the tax avoidance is the biggest thing. They do, like, I don't think Boston is gonna tank. Like, I don't think, but they do own their own pick in 2026. So I just don't see their motivation post deadline to like really go for it. And I think that's where like the Tatum thing gets really interesting, because it's like, are you going to bring Tatum back with this roster anyway? Or if you like get the, information that he's going to be back, then do you not avoid the tax and go out and get a real center and start building this roster out again? My guess is Tatum is not going to play this year. We talk all the time about, okay, what is the data in front of us right now? And to me, the data in front of me right now, based on the history of this injury and everything else, irregardless of YouTube videos and all of that, is that Jason Tatum will not play this year. And so while I think Derek White and Jaylen Brown are going to have huge seasons, and I respect Joe Mazzulla and all of that, I just think that this is going to be a season where they play Baylor Shireman and they play maybe Hugo Gonzalez as a rookie, and all of these guys, and figure out what they have a little bit and go from there. And so I don't think it's a crazy under. Like, I don't think they're all of a sudden only going to win 30 games or something crazy like that. They're probably dancing around 500. I am going to go slightly under for them.
Andrew?
I was where you guys were until I saw a YouTube video this morning. I despise the talent on the roster. It's just not good enough to win 38 games. It's the center rotation that they currently have is not good enough to win 30, I don't think. And there's no disrespect to them. I just don't think the Queta, Tillman, Garza center rotation is all that impressive, while recognizing they did turn Luke Cornett into something very positive, and he ended up getting himself a payday. Peyton Pritchard and his like high usage, if they try to lean into some small ball and want to go to Pritchard playing like 30 to 35 minutes, does his 58 true shooting and 58 effective field goal percentage translate to 35, 40 minutes? We'll see. I will say,
like,
go ahead.
Like, Pritchard played like 29 minutes a game last year. Like, he played a lot last year.
He started a bunch last year too, which is more the sample that I'm going with. Like, if he's going to now play consistently 35 minutes and is there one of their crunch time guys and they go without a center, I think Mazzulla is psycho enough to just squeeze 38 wins out of this team, which is the under. And it's where I was until I saw Jason Tatum doing on-court workouts now that I just don't see normally until a guy is 7 to 8 months removed from an Achilles injury. I think he's going to play this year. I think if they can Psycho Joe their way to near 500, they'll try to get him back sometime in April or March. I'm not even saying it's the smart thing. It's what I believe the coach is. I do think the path to the under is significantly more likely. I'm just flat out spooked by this Tatum video from this morning, guys. That does not look like a guy that's not going to play basketball this season. So in thinking that Jason Tatum will play this year and it'll help them get closer to 44 wins than 34 wins, I'll take the over.
So here's what kind of, this is a total stay away for me, because I think that 40.5 is about right. We talked about like the synergy between coaching staff and roster with the Bucks in terms of why I don't really just love it and think it makes sense. I think there's a ton of synergy between what Joe Mazzulla wants to do on offense in this roster. Like, Anthony Simons does not fit at all on defense in terms of what the Celtics want to do, but actually like does really fit on offense. Like, he does want to go out and chuck threes and find open pull up threes and be able to score, right? This team had a 120.6 offensive rating. I don't think it's going to be that high this year, obviously. I kind of think that it might be. I think they're probably going to be a top 10 offense, to be honest with you. I just kind of think that highly of Mazzulla, and I think that highly of what they run in terms of like finding mismatches, right? And I think Jaylen Brown and Derek White are going to be able to create mismatches like in a significant way. And Anthony Simons is like a real shot creator. He think whatever about Anthony Simons because it is what it is. This is a dude that's averaged 21 points on 9 3-point attempts and shot 37% on those 9 3-point attempts and shot 90 from the line over the course of the last 3 years, while also averaging 5 assists to 2.2 turnovers. So like Anthony Simons can really go on offense. I just don't see where the defensive infrastructure is going to come from this group either. Bryce?
Can I counter that real quick? Because I actually was on the Celtics pod recently and we talked about this. So my offensive counter is this. Kristaps Porzingis, stretch big. Al Horford, stretch big. You guys want to guess the career 3-point makes from Luka Garza, Neemias Queta, and who's the one I'm missing? And Xavier Tillman.
I mean, I would guess that all of them come from, well, I guess Tillman, if you're counting Tillman, he made some threes in Memphis for a little bit there, but like 25 would be my number.
It's more than that. Yeah. I mean, Tillman made 60. So it's 100. It's 110. But now I realize Boucher can do it a little bit. But then you're like, that's, a completely different story. But that was my counter. That was a conversation I had on a Celtics pod. And it was interesting because it's like, Missoula likes to play 5 out, space, shoot threes. And this, like, Garza theoretically does that. As you mentioned, maybe he empowers Garza so much and Tillman gets empowered again to do it, that they do it. I think that's the path that gets them to this number a little bit more, is if those guys just step out and all of a sudden really knock down shots. But I thought that was an interesting thing.
It is an interesting point. But again, I would just counter with Boucher. Like, Boucher is going to fire from 3 here. There's like no question about that to me. Like, they can run out a lineup offensively of Derek White, Anthony Simons, Jaylen Brown, Sam Hauser, Chris Boucher. You can put in Peyton Pritchard for any of those guards if you want to. Like, you can put in Baylor Shireman for any of the wings if you want to. And like, all of those dudes absolutely just fucking fire from 3. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to have no problem spacing 5 out and doing that in the Boucher lineups. And Boucher will play 20 to 25 minutes for this team, I would guess. So I still think this is probably an under, because I don't see a way that they can create a positive defensive infrastructure. And I say that, though, noting, of course, that this is a team that has had a very good defense since Missoula has been there. They have never been outside of the top 5 defensively since Joe Missoula has been there. I don't really see how they're going to rebound quite as effectively, because that's actually a really sneaky thing that Tatum brings to the table. He's a fucking incredible rebounder for a wing. So rebounding is going to be an issue for them. Finishing possessions and just like being able to stay in front of teams. I mean, they have to go 500 for this to go and be an over. I am going under. I just think that there is a chance that they kind of decide to play the tax avoidance game. And they try to showcase Simons and then try to move Simons. They have like a pretty big trade exception, if memory serves, as well, to where they can kind of like maneuver around with the Simons deal if they want to, in order to take some money back in kind of funky ways. So they can get really creative in how they move Simons. And I just imagine that Simons is not going to be on this roster at some point this year, just because that's the move that makes the most sense to be able to get below the tax, and because he should have real value as an expiring deal across the league for teams that just need a boost of offense after guys get hurt, right? I think this is an under. I think there are more pathways to under. I will just say, I think that this team offensively is going to be a problem, and that they're going to be able to really fucking score across the board, just like we've seen in the last few years.
Especially when they get Tatum back.
Especially when they get Tatum back. I would hope that they're going to be really playing somewhat slow with Tatum here. Okay. Next up, the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat won 37 games last year, not 36 and a half games, but 37 games last season. Their over-under this season is 39 and a half. I'm just going to give Andrew the floor on this one. Andrew, you can go first. Where are you at on the Miami Heat? I can kind of explain at some point what their roster looks like. Obviously, the Norm Powell addition is important, but we do unfortunately have some news on Tyler Hero.
Well, so I'm taking the under, but I think 37 is the number. So it's not like 39.5 is their number. So I think 38, 39 is around where their number is. I think I had them at 37, but I could see them getting to 38, 39. I like Davion Mitchell a lot. He was a guy that I had targeted that the Knicks should trade for last year at the deadline if they were going after. The fact that he shot 44% from three when he went to the Heat and was a plus 64 and 950 minutes is partially why they were able to sneak in as the 10th seed in a lot of the two play-in games that earned them the worst playoff margin difference in NBA history against the Cavs. It's largely because of him. I think him now a full season under Spo is helpful. I just think their talent ceiling, especially with Tyler Hero out, is not that high. And I firmly expect them to make the play-in, but as a team that's under 500. So I'll take the under of the Miami Heat, not as a sign of disrespect. Maybe they're just like a year away with the core that they've put together. Yeah, I'll take the under here.
Bryce?
Yeah, I'm going under as well. This is a team that I tried to really like this offseason because I do like Tyler Hero. I like Norm Powell. Hoping for a bounce back season from Bam. Khalil Ware's interesting here. I've always kind of stayed on the Andrew Wiggins. Is still a decent, good, two-way wing, even though the contract and all of that. But the Hero injury really swung this for me. I was already starting to trend down a little bit. People probably know because people that watch this show are really into it, but I hope people understand how important and how much he drives the offense for the Miami Heat. I think I heard on a podcast today, Trae Young ran the most pick and rolls last season in the NBA and Tyler Hero was second. And it's just that's a lot of on-ball usage. And I mean, listen, if they didn't have Norm Powell, I would be pounding the table for the under. I think Norm Powell saves this offense at the start of the year to not be bottom 5 potentially. And I kind of like the other guys on the roster. I'm with you. Davion Mitchell's interesting. Simone Fontecchio needs a bounce back year. Jovic, they're all interesting, but I don't know, Sam. I just listen, Spo's going to get him to 30 plus wins. Bam and Hero will be, and Hero will be back at a certain Bam's defense. Hero will be back at a certain point. But I'm also what are they going to do? Is Norm Powell in the season all year? Is, I don't know. So I'm going under. I don't think it's by a lot, but I ended up under on them.
I also ended up under on the Heat at 39.5. The reasons for this are pretty real. Like you said, Hero being out for 8 weeks, it looks like from this point forward. So you're looking at a December-ish kind of, start of December kind of window would be my guess. Maybe late November you could get into with Hero. Norm Powell and Hero just kind of operate very differently. I've always liked Norm best as a catch and shoot guy who can attack closeouts, who, kind of maintains advantages that are already created for him. And it's just this unbelievable play finisher because he's become a great shooter. He's become a great overall player at pace and being able to understand how to attack defenses. But like you said, Hero was a guy that really ended up creating a lot in ball screens. And now that's probably going to fall to Mitchell. If you made me bet, I would guess that their starting lineup right now is probably Davion Mitchell, Norman Powell, Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, Khalil Ware. And then you're looking at Jovic, Fontecchio, Hawkes kind of fell out for a minute there last year, but I would guess Hawkes will play. I'm very intrigued to see if they end up just kind of rolling Yakashonis out just for another ball handler. But I would guess Pele Larson will play a decent amount here too, because Larson showed some real signs as a rookie last year too. This is just the ultimate, how freaking good is Eric Spoelstra year to me. Is he good enough to win them and will them to 39 wins, 40 wins, or no? I think the answer is probably no if Hero misses 20 plus games, but I'll hear it out at least if you guys, want to try and counter me.
I think Spo is good enough to help them win 37, 38 wins, not 42, like sneak in as a 7 or 6 seed. This feels like a bottom tier play-in team just on talent.
For what it's
I
worth,
will say they should be quite good on defense. Like they should be, somewhere in the like 6 to 10 range, I would guess, defensively this year.
And they were pretty good on defense last year too. It's very much an offensive conversation. I forget who said it, but like asking Norm Powell to do what Tyler Hero does on offense is just a significant downgrade. Not to say anything about what Norm Powell is good at. I just don't think it's the right way to deploy Norm Powell.
37 last season is their lowest win total since 2007, 2008. Like it's just been, but I'm still, there's enough wiggle room under 39.5, above 37 that I'll take it.
Well, here's just like my other kind of counter here. I don't think this team will tank at any point. Like we can make
about it, but
teams like Boston and Philly and like maybe I don't know about Milwaukee ever tanking either, trying to keep you honest, but like a couple of these teams, Indiana as well, haven't gotten their pick back, right?
Yeah.
Like could easily look at a potential tank, right? Like that's a circumstance where I think they could look at, okay, we have guys hurt, let's maybe take this year off. I don't really see the Heat taking a year off in any way. Like I think that Spoelstra has just like built such a strong ecosystem that they're probably going to be quite competitive throughout the year. I look, I don't feel strongly about this one. This is absolutely a stay away for me, but I'm going to lean under and just kind of, assume that they're right around the play-in again.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. The Indiana Pacers. The Indiana Pacers are your Eastern Conference finalists from last season. They won 50 games. However, Tyrese Halliburton is going to miss the season, and they are now without Miles Turner after he signed in Milwaukee for the long-term contract that he did. This is a fascinating team. This is a team without Halliburton seemingly for the full season after he tore his Achilles in the finals in June. This is a team that really does not have much on the interior. I mean, shout out Jay Huff. I mean, like James Wiseman is on this team. Like, I just like Isaiah Jackson obviously is going to get a shot, it feels like, at some point here, but this win total is 38.5. And to me, that 38.5 without Halliburton is like all you are betting on is Rick Carlisle ecosystem and structure just being absolutely incredible, plus Siakam, plus Nembhard, plus Nesmith, plus everything that they've built there. But you're just betting so strongly on what Rick Carlisle has built offensively and in terms of the ecosystem that it feels like a long road to me to get to 38.5.
Well, I will go down that road, Sam. I will take the over because everything you just said is what I believe. And maybe it's me writing the coattails of what that team was last year and the stories I've heard about it since the season was over. And it's a vastly different roster. So it very well may not be the same. But I watched that team just put different bigs on the floor and different players on the floor. And a lot of them seem to just still do what Indiana wants them to do. We've talked about Andrew Nembhard. Listen, we talked about Benedict Mathurin. Like, who knows what it ends up meaning for a contract in his long-term future? But is it going to shock
contract year? Mathurin is a good player to bet on here.
18 to 20 points a game. Is that a real possibility? Absolutely. Here's my thoughts on the Pacers. I think the Pacers could very easily go over this, as I'm betting that. Well, I'm not betting that because I don't bet, but I'm saying that. And then they could just get, like, if they make the playoffs or whatever, then it not look very good in a playoff setting when you don't have, those other guys. I just think this is a system that's going to work. I love the way they, if they lean even more into the pick up full court in the regular season, that's just going to piss people off in the middle of January, in the middle of February, in the middle of every other month. Pascal Siakam is a real two-way player that's legit. I think they have enough scoring. And it is like, this is a little bit of like I think Jay Huff just fits what they want to do. You could go small with some of these guys. I'm buying everything Rick Carlisle and that organization is selling right now. And I think because of that, they get, close enough to 500 to take the over here.
Andrew?
I'm also taking the over. In doing the calculations for this season and actually picking what win total I think these teams will be at, going from 50 to 37, you'd have to be telling me that losing Tyrese Halliburton and losing Miles Turner is a 13-win drop. And I think losing Hallie is a 9 to 10 win drop. But I think with what they have in place, and this is also a vote for Carlisle too, between Jay Huff and Isaiah Jackson, I think they can make up what they lost in Miles Turner in the aggregate. I also think the breakout near Nembhard, even though
You're
I don't really,
moneyballing it.
I don't necessarily know what a breakout.
What is the problem, GMAC? What is the problem? Wrong.
What they
No,
they don't get on base. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you've seen Moneyball.
Yes, that's one of my favorites.
Look, I don't know what an Andrew Nembhard breakout season necessarily looks like. I think, him being, again, the Jeremy Giambi to his brother Jason, if you want to say a percentage of what Tyrese Halliburton gave you, has me with this team at 40 wins. I think they get to the 7-8 game and they play my Boston Celtics. I cannot believe that sentence just came out of my mouth. But I do see this team with Carlisle and the infrastructure in place. And look, this is a team that had a halftime lead after Halliburton went out of Game 7 of the finals. So there is still a will and a belief in the overall system that has been put there. And I'm with Carlisle and Siakam still there. They do still have an all-star and a Hall of Fame coach. I think 40 wins is extremely plausible. So I'm going to predict it and say the over.
So last year, the Indiana Pacers in the regular season played about 1,100 minutes without Tyrese Halliburton or Miles Turner on the court. So neither of them on the court. What do you think their net rating was in those minutes?
Is it bad? Is it very bad?
Give me an
for the
answer.
sake
-3.
I say for the sake of my answer, I hope it's positive, but my gut tells me negative. I was gonna say negative, 3.5, 4, something like that.
In the 1,097 minutes that the Indiana Pacers played last season without Tyrese Halliburton or Miles Turner, they were a plus 1.3.
Oh, Bryce.
Last season.
Yes.
That's pretty good.
Sam said
pretty solid.
Take the over.
Mhm.
Go over,
Right?
Sam. Go
Do
over,
it.
Sam.
So a lot of those minutes came in like bench stuff, and you don't want to like overreact a crazy amount to them because we're totally changing situations that players are in for, right? I think that, again, the teams that tend to surprise are the teams that have real synergy between scheme and coaching staff with high-level coaching. I think that that's kind of what this Indiana Pacers team is. They have an amazing backup option in Andrew Nembhard, who I think can actually really be a point guard for this group. He's not going to be what Halliburton was, but he is somebody that is like very good and very capable of running this offense. You can run out Nembhard, Mathurin, Nesmith, Siakam, and like if you want to go small, you can go Toppin. If you want to go bigger, you can go Jay Huff or Isaiah Jackson. Both Jay Huff and Isaiah Jackson kind of fit this team. Jackson being able to run up and down the court, Huff being able to knock down threes. I do think that the defense is going to suffer. I think losing Turner is like a real problem for them on defense. Turner definitely took a step back like the last year and a half on defense, I would argue, but just not having him is going to be a problem for them. I think like he was able to kind of fix some issues with his ability to protect the rim. They were 13th in defense last year. I would guess that they're probably going to see that drop off a little bit. I am going to take the over. I think that there's just enough here for Carlisle to kind of mix and match it and make it work.
Love it.
And to get to like 39 wins, right? Or 41 wins or something. They're the team that I trust a little bit more because I think they have just enough defensive infrastructure compared to Boston, where Boston like has real liabilities on the perimeter on top of having, you know, whatever is going on at the center position. We have questions about the center position, but on the perimeter, like they can run out Andrew Nembhard and TJ McConnell and like press those guys in the backcourt for long portions of games and try to tire them out. Like they have Ben Shepherd, who is skinny, but like works his balls off on defense. Like they have, you know, Pascal Siakam, who covers a crazy amount of ground. Like they just have a lot of bodies, including Aaron Nesmith, who is awesome, who is probably playing for an extension, I would guess, if I was, you know, predicting. So I just kind of love, I think they have just enough defense while having the strong synergy between what the coaching staff wants to do on offense and what their skill levels and talents are on offense, to where I think they do get to like 40, 41 wins.
Love it.
I'm going over for the Pacers. And yet now we reach the Raptors. And I'm so excited to have this conversation because I'm just going to tell people straight up. I think this goes over. I think this goes over by like a real margin with the Raptors. The Raptors won 30 games last year. Their over-under is 37.5 this year. They have a ton of talent. They have a ton of depth. They have a lot of bodies here. You're looking at a starting lineup of Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, and Jakob Poeltl, I would guess, in terms of what your five is. But behind them, you've got Ochai, you've got Grady Dick, you've got Jacoby Walter, you've got Mobo, you've got Jamal Shed, you've got Colin Murray Boyles. They go out and they sign Sandro Mamukelashvili. Like, I think that this team is going to be one that wins a lot of regular season games. It's kind of where I'm at. And I know that we have questions about like what the long-term efficacy is and how valuable this, you know, whole endeavor is for the Raptors. But I think the Raptors, this was going to be one of my bold predictions that we do like at the end of the offseason, but I'll just do it now. I think the Raptors make the playoffs just straight. I think they're a top 6 team in the East.
So I didn't go that far. I have them very much in the play-in range. But where I have them in the play-in range, it's a definite over. I have them 9th right now. I've toyed with having them as high as 7. I would not get them to 6, but 9 was as low as I could get it. And again, the low number of that over the last 4 years is 39 wins. So I'm very much over here because I think there's 2 paths to this. I think one is just a straight, like, the amount of talent here on this team that Sam just outlined and didn't even mention Jamison Battle in that conversation. I think the other path is if someone does shake loose out there, they have the contracts to match numbers. They have the draft picks to go and acquire a player as well if they really want to make a move. So I think in an Eastern Conference where we're always talking about like, where's the talent, whatever, they have a lot of it. And I also think that they could make a move to really compete. So this was one of my felt pretty strong on the over teams.
I'm still cooling off from the scorching hot take that Sam just unleashed on us. That was brilliant and beautiful. And I agree that they're going to hit the over. I think we have 3 overs here for sure. I do think they have a 1-ball problem, and that gets solved by staggering. Sure. I crunch time. I'm very curious what they look like for sure. They have 4 guys that last season and I think the last 2 seasons have averaged at least a 25 usage. I went through the last 10 years, 15 years to see how many teams have succeeded with guys with at least a 25 usage, and the only one that exists is the 1920 Clippers that had Montrezl Harrell, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Lou Will, and they were really good. But forgive me if Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are not Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes. Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett have experience in New York from their time in New York playing off ball. Didn't go all that well with RJ Barrett. So maybe they take a step back around the other two and it's successful. I agree that there is a lot of talent on this team, and this coaching staff has a lot to work with. I do wonder about their ceiling being higher than 9th, which is where I also have them as well. So I'm taking the over. I think it's like a 40-win team. I don't know how much higher I can go with them, though.
So last year, Scotty Barnes played 65 games. RJ Barrett played 58 games. Ochai played 64. Jakob Poeltl played 57. Grady Dick played 54. Manuel Quickly played 33. And then Brandon Ingram obviously just like didn't play for them last year. But like if you want to throw in the other guys, like Bruce Brown played 18 for them last year, right? And then Kelly Olynyk played 24 games for them last year. So that was the salary match. Even the guys that they salary matched Brandon Ingram for didn't really play for them last year. So you're adding just so much injury luck in terms of like positive regression into this situation where they already won 30 last year. Like they're going to get internal development just from guys being healthy that were on the roster last year. Then you add in Brandon Ingram, and I have as many questions about people, as Brandon Ingram as, a lot of people do. I wouldn't say I'm like a massive Brandon Ingram guy by any stretch of the imagination. Brandon Ingram helps you win regular season games. Like Brandon Ingram is definitely a high level scorer who helps you win regular season games. I think that the key for them is Scotty Barnes taking like a real step forward, not just in terms of scoring. I would like to see him like really run the show, like almost as their, I don't want to say primary guard, because I think that like Quickly will probably take a lot of that load on this year. But like he and Quickly, I think really are going to have to make sure that everybody gets organized and gets involved. They really love having 5 guys out on the court who can dribble, pass, shoot. 4 guys that can dribble, pass, shoot, at least, with Poeltl is like a great screener who can run different dribble handoff actions, everything like that, right? Poeltl does his job. Then you bring in Sandro. Sandro is just like straight up a dribble, pass, shoot big, right? He fits the mold there. He's going to give them real minutes at the backup center. I think that Colin Murray-Boyles is probably going to be able to help you in 500, 600 minutes, over the course of the season, just through his defensive ability, his ability to dribble and pass, maybe not necessarily shoot with him, but can do quite a bit early on, I think, just as a role player. And then they do have like real shooters to come off the bench, or one of these guys could start in Ochai Agbaji, Jacoby Walter, and Grady Dick. Like you might bring RJ Barrett off the bench, in my opinion, like, and just let him play, 25 to 27 minutes a night as the 6th man so that he gets a chance to like kind of run his show, right? I think the offense fits a little bit better than what people, might think. I am like very worried on defense, frankly, because I don't love Brandon Ingram on that end. And a lot of the guys I just mentioned are all quite young. And I know that they were better late in the year on defense last year, but, the prevailing piece of it with Darko over the course of his 2 years there has been that they have not been very good on defense. And I haven't even liked the real infrastructure that they've presented a lot of the time. But I really think that this team has a chance to win a lot of regular season games because they just have a lot of bodies who can go out and get you points and can be highly competitive in big moments, later in games if things are tight, which is something that, they haven't had a ton of over the course of the last couple of years too, because Scotty is still trying to figure out that piece of his role as well. If he takes a step forward, if Scotty Barnes takes a step forward, I mean, this team like could win 50, I think. But even so, I think that they win like 45, and I think that they end up in the playoffs, just like straight up in the playoffs, not in the play-in tournament.
Interesting.
It's bold.
It is.
I will say,
Raptors fans have long hated me. Do not hate me now, Raptors fans. I am in on your team this year. I think you guys have a chance to be quite good. I have a lot of questions in the playoffs, and I have a lot of questions on what the long-term upside of this project is.
I will say, oh, sorry. Go ahead, sorry.
Regular season wins, they're going to do that this year, I think.
Each of the last 5 seasons, there's been a team that like came out of nowhere and surprised us and made the playoffs. 5 years ago, it was the Knicks during the Julius Randle season. The following year, it was the Bulls that made it as a 6 seed. The year that DeRozan and Levine and Lonzo and Caruso were all there. 3 years ago was the Magic. 2 years ago, last year was the Pistons. If this year's the Raptors, it would follow the trend. There's one team that was outside of the projected top 7 or 8 that made a jump from 10th or 11th into the 6th. So there is precedent for one team to come out of nowhere and surprise us. So Sam, you're placing your chip there.
I am. And you guys both picked over here, right?
Yeah, I think this is a 40-win team.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a bad team. I just think this is not a playoff team.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls, their win total over under is, that's the wrong team, 32.5. They won 39 last year. Obviously made some moves in season that kind of changed the infrastructure of their team, but those moves actually made their team better in terms of like wins and losses and net rating and everything. Bryce, I'll start with you. Where are you at on the Chicago Bulls? Again, 32.5 is the number you have to get to.
Yeah, so this is not an indictment of me thinking this is like a good team. This is not an indictment of even like having this team in my play-in right now, just based on rankings. And even where I have them says that they should win 30 to 33 games, that, you know, I think half the years a team right outside the play-in is going to win more than this. But I just think this team is going to win more than 32.5 because we know they're not, I don't say it. They have shown us that they are not going to tank, even if they should, that they're going to try to go out and win as many games as they can. Now, I'm a little bit interested to see what happens with like Vooch and Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu and some of those guys in terms of being unrestricted free agents, and do deals get done, and then what happens if they don't, and all of that. But at the end of the day, Josh Giddey in this role is a guy that puts up big numbers. Vooch they have an offensive identity that fits some of these guys on the roster, like Modest Buzelis. So I do think, while I still don't even have them as a play-in team, I have them winning more than 32.5.
So any
Andrew?
Bulls fans watching, I want you to know how intently and closely I studied their 17-8 stretch after the trade deadline, really after the All-Star break, which they were really good net rating, or 8th in net rating over this stretch. They were 12th in both offense and defense during this stretch. It made Bulls basketball enjoyable post Zach LaVine, and even though I don't love the trade, it made the product. They had good wins in there. A really thrilling win from half court against the Lakers by Giddey. During this stretch, Giddey averaged 21, 11, and 10 on 44% from 3. Kobe White averaged 26 a game on 43% from 37% from 3. The 43 that I'm pointing to is Nikola Vucevic, who actually shot 46% from 3 during this stretch. Kevin Huerter got up to 40% on 7 attempts. I wanted to see how sustainable this stretch was for the Bulls, and all the pieces that were there last year during this stretch are there this year.
Yeah.
And I'm taking the over, but I don't think it's that sustainable. I just think the Chicago Bulls and their ownership and their organizational plan is, we are going to win 39 games, damn it. We are going to be in the play-in hunt. They're not going to be bad enough. They're not going to be good enough, but this is their comfort zone. They are not too bad that they can't win at least 33 games, to Bryce's point. And there is enough there that will be entertaining, I think, like that 17-8 stretch. So any Bulls fan that's upset we're not projecting them to have the 48 wins that 17-8 over an 82 game season would project. I don't believe that it's an 82 game sustainable sample, but I do think it'll be an entertaining 39 wins, even if it might not be the best course of action for them. So yes, at 33 at minimum is a number for me.
So I'm going over because I just don't think they're going to tank at the end of the day. It is the reality. And 32.5 is the number that you can get to. 33 wins is the number you can get to in the East if you don't tank. I agree with you that they just shot out of their minds to end last year. And I say that they're not going to tank. And I do just want to note that a lot of these dudes have like real expiring money coming. Like if Kobe White tells them that like, I'm not going to sign here long term in January or something, they probably need to move him at the end of the day. Now, we haven't seen them do that all that often in the past, right? Like they are mostly happy to kind of take guys to free agency sometimes, but that would be bad. Like that would be a bad choice if Kobe was to say that and you don't move him.
They never make bad choices, though.
Ayo Dosunmu, making $7.5 million is going to be a very popular trade target as a expiring player. Vooch is an expiring player at 21 million. We do know that they have attempted to move Vooch. I would imagine that as an expiring, Vooch is a player that somebody who needs size in the, down the stretch run. It's probably something that will happen, I would guess. I don't know, like, then you're looking at Giddey, probably Kobe White, Modest, no, like Jalen Smith probably is in there, and then like Pat Williams. I mean, that team shouldn't win 33 games if they move Vooch and Dosunmu, but they might. Like, they're going to keep playing at the end of the day. Man, I think that this team is not a 32 win team talent wise. I will just say that. It's just the reality is that we don't see this team tank, and they continue to play and they continue to work every year and try to make the play in. I think it's probably like a 34 to 35 win team. I don't feel strongly about this in any way. I guess I will say over, if only because like this is kind of what this Bulls organization does. Unfortunately, they just kind of stay in the middle. Over the last 4 years, 46 wins, 40 wins, 39 wins, 39 wins. I will say, like, there was a dire stretch there from 2018 or 2017-18 until 2020-21, where they won 27, 22, 22, 31, those last 2 years being shortened years. So, like, they are capable of going under here. Like, that is absolutely a real thing. Like, I think people look at this number, make the jokes about the Bulls making the play-in and everything like that, and just kind of assume that, oh, yeah, this is going to be an over because they're going to get to 35 to 39. I'm not as convinced that this team is good enough to get to 35 to 39 wins necessarily. But I do think that if you made me pick right now, I think I would lean over, even though my head is telling me that talent-wise, this is an under.
Again, track record. I get what you're saying. They are capable. Well, I know what you said. They are capable of tanking. Just the last 4 years, they haven't been or haven't chosen to. Is where I'll go with that. They have a reputation that 33 wins at the minimum. I think they're going to try to get more.
Well, and hey, maybe Kobe White and Josh Giddey is just like the backcourt of the future, right? Yeah. And they end up being good on offense. Like they might be good on offense. And then like maybe Modest is really good or something like that. There are pathways to where they get over. I don't know if there are pathways to 40, but I think there are pathways to where they get over. I also can see, like, if Josh Giddey gets hurt or like misses 25 to 30 games, like, yeah, they have Trey Jones and yeah, like Kobe can do some initiation, but they don't have a ton of depth to where I feel like they can get to, 33, 34, 35 without staying healthy. I don't know. That's a tough one. The Charlotte Hornets are another tough one for me. The line is 25.5. They won 19 last year. Again, a team that, kind of took the pedal off the gas a little bit, or took the foot off the gas a little bit. I apologize. Brandon Miller only played 27 games. LaMelo Ball only played 47 games. Grant Williams only played 16 games. Josh Green only played 68. Mark Williams, who they've obviously moved on from, only played 44. This is another team, much like the Philadelphia 76ers, where it wasn't quite as dire as them, but they only had 3 players who played 1,500 minutes last year. Who do you think played the 4th and 5th most minutes on the Charlotte Hornets last year? We will go to Bryce first.
4th and 5th most. So you said
total minutes.
Did you already say Mark Williams?
So Mark Williams is not an answer here. Mark Williams was 7th.
What were the first 3 again, Sam?
So I didn't name them, but it was Miles Bridges, Josh Green, LaMelo Ball. Who do you think was 4th and 5th?
Diabate.
Yeah, I'll go Josh Green just to mix it up.
Josh Green was 2nd, I said.
Oh, you said 2nd.
Diabate was 6th for what it's worth.
It can't be Brandon Miller then. He didn't play enough.
Brandon Miller did not play enough. He was 11th. 4th is a player that just got cut last week. Nick Smith Jr. finished 4th in minutes on the Charlotte Hornets last year. 5th was Tidjane Salaam, who, their rookie from the 2024 NBA draft, did not play super well. Look, I'd imagine he'll be in the rotation because they're committed to him, but we'll see what it looks like. This is a team that weirdly has a lot of depth now, especially in terms of ball handling, I would say. LaMelo tends to miss a lot of time. I think that with LaMelo, you just have to go in assuming that LaMelo is going to miss time, because that's been the reality of every season of his career, but one, I believe. 51, 75, 36, 22, 47 in terms of games played. Look, I think it's reasonable to expect that LaMelo is going to miss 25 to 30 games at this point, just because that's been the history. And it sucks. It's terrible, but that has been the history at this point. They do have Colin Sexton now. They have Con Knippel. They do get Trey Mann back. Trey Mann missed basically all of last season, unfortunately, after getting hurt 13 games into the year and showing some flashes in those 13 games. I'm going to go over here for them. I think that they just have enough dudes to where they can kind of survive injuries in a way that we haven't seen before from this organization. I also really like their rookie class, and I think their rookies have a chance to all kind of play a role in some respect. Like Lee McNeely is as professional as you'll find, ready to come in and shoot. Con Knippel is just incredibly skilled and, doesn't take anything off of the floor. He's tough on defense. He's a great ball handler. Obviously can really shoot it. Sion James is a really high level defender. And then Kalkbrenner, could be their starting center at some point this year. They just have a lot of depth this year to where even if guys get hurt, LaMelo gets hurt, etc., I think that they can survive a little bit better than what we've seen in the past.
So I struggled with this one, and this one was probably if I didn't hold myself to half and half thing in terms of over unders, I would probably go over. So for me to go over on them, I would have had to find an over I already had and go under with it. So I'm going to go under very, very, very slightly. I do think they get over 20 wins. I think they're 1 year away from me feeling really good about them. I agree with you, Sam. I like the draft picks. We talked about that. I like some of the stuff on the roster. At the end of the day, a lot of the names you said are still in their early 20s, maybe mid 20s, even Kalkbrenner, but he's still a rookie. The center room is fun, but is it that good where
this is one of the 3 or 4 worst center rooms in the league.
Yeah.
This year. That's definitely true.
You have the rookie who's fun and interesting, but he's still a rookie. You have Diabate who rebounds everything. You have 35-year-old Mason Plumlee. I do think you bring up a good point, and that's why I kind of would like to take the over. I just can't, of the depth. And then I do just wonder, they're another team. Like, what does end up happening with Colin Sexton as a, that's a guy that probably should get moved at a certain point if you can find a market for him. And then I think I also heard today, if I'm not mistaken, like Grant Williams and Josh Green are starting out injured, I believe. Like they had, injuries that they're dealing with. So I think we have one more year of this for Charlotte, but I think it's, closer to 23, 24, 25 wins than the, under 20 that we saw last year.
Yeah. Josh Green, for what it's worth, is going to miss all of training camp with a shoulder injury. And then Grant is still recovering from his ACL.
Yeah. Okay.
A 6-win improvement is still the under. And I think they'll be better than they were last season. I think they'll infrastructurally look better on paper and on the court than they were last year. I like putting Knipple next to LaMelo and maybe like another leap as a shooter from Brandon Miller. And you're looking at LaMelo getting closer to 10 assists than he has in the past. Like I mentioned when we talked about Trae Young, those potential assists. LaMelo's always in the top 7 or 8 in potential assists, and now spraying it out to who is projected to be a really good shooter could help. I also have injury concerns, and whether or not LaMelo can play 50 games, I think is a concern because he hasn't in the last 3 seasons. Now, I do think we'll feel good or better about this team than we did last year because of the on-court progress that we see. But that could mean 6 more wins and it still hits the under. There's a hint of what you mentioned, Bryce. I need to pick another under, but I think this team could win 25 games. You could say there was enough that I saw this year that adding another lottery pick is progress. It's still another year before we're ready to start looking at them in the mid-30s.
Yeah, look, I'm going to go over here because I think that, man, like LaMelo and Brandon Miller are talented, and those guys just like did not play last year, right? Like LaMelo played 47 or whatever, but Brandon only played 27. And then you bring in all of this depth in terms of ball handling. Like when they lost LaMelo and Trey Mann last year, they just had nobody. Like again, like Nick Smith played 1,300 minutes last year. And he literally just got like straight cut. Like they didn't even like, I'm sure they tried to move him, but like nobody was interested. You know what I mean? So I think that they just dealt with their floor last year was like catastrophic. And I don't think the floor is as catastrophic this year. I think it's like, look, this team probably wins like 28 to 30 games or whatever, 25, 27, 28. I just think that there are more pathways toward them being like, okay, even if they don't stay healthy, I think that they're going to be like a little bit more competitive than what we've seen.
Yeah. I don't have as much conviction about the under, as to be clear. Like this absolutely could be a 31 win team, and that's still a 50 loss season, but again, that's a 12-win improvement. I think this team will be improved than they were last year. They also have it's one of those picks that the extra pick that they have in this draft, so they don't necessarily need to only have their pick be the first round talent. It's one of those picks where it's late in the first round and 4 teams, like it's the worst of 4 teams. So I just wait until the draft orders decided before I actually get it,
So here's the other thing with this draft cycle, and we should mention this as we start to get down into like this area of this conversation. The Hornets, the Nets and Wizards, and then additionally, the Jazz and the Pelicans, not the Pelicans because they don't have their own pick, but like particularly the Jazz, let's call it. Those teams like will really want to get into the top 3 because the top 3 this year is like drastically different than 4, 5, 6, 7 right now. Maybe Michael Brown steps up, maybe somebody else steps up and becomes like a real 4, 5 option that you're very happy with. But like right now, it looks like that top 3 is that top 3, and that's where you want to be in this draft cycle. So I could see a world where the Hornets go, oh no, we need to tank this. Like we need to like really cut this off and like sit LaMelo, sit Brandon Miller, sit everybody, for the last month of the year and like really try to lose games. And that would knock me out. Like that would give them a shot to win like 22 to 24 games. I think that they have enough depth right now to where they can get to like 25 wins by March, let's call it. And then we'll see where we're at. And maybe they just like sneak a couple late.
Yeah. The Portland pivot.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Portland pivot.
Remember 2 years ago when they lost real quick,
do.
they lost Dame and they went 1-23 down the stretch to make sure
It was
they're
amazing.
we nicknamed it the Portland pivot over at Knicks Film School.
It was crazy. Okay. These last two, I can't imagine we're going to go particularly long on. The Brooklyn Nets, they won 26 last year. Their line is 21.5. They have a lot of kids. They have no incentive to win this year, basically. This is like the purest of unders in terms of like a tank. They're not even doing the Portland pivot. They're just doing the shuffle toward the lottery ball line, I would guess.
Yep. Under. We all believe a certain way. Well, I shouldn't speak for GMAC. We've talked very highly of Jordy Fernandez on this podcast. I like some of the players on the team. I hated their draft, though. They need to go to Sam's point. They need to be in the top 3 this season, and they should do everything they can to get there. So I am going under.
Andrew?
One of my locks, very under. I think they could challenge their franchise record for losses in a season, which was 70 back the year that DeMarcus Cousins got drafted, and they didn't end up with the 1. That was the year that John Wall was the prize of that draft. My only contribution to this Nets conversation, and this is really realizing this in the research and how long it looked like they were going to be pick encumbered because of the James Harden trade, and realizing that they're down to just like a swap next year. And that's it.
Yeah,
that
because of the Houston deal that they did to get the picks back. Yeah.
I'm just extending an olive branch to little brother across the borough, across the Hudson, that like, you really rebuilt this really well. You got all this incoming draft capital from the Knicks and you still have draft capital coming from the Suns. You even have Sixers draft capital coming in. It's an impressive way that they've gotten out of that hole post KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. And I can't wait for you to use all that draft capital on picks that Sam and Bryce are unimpressed by over the next few years.
So here'd be my only, and I'm taking under here to be clear. Last year, they started out non-catastrophic because Jordy Fernandez is a really good basketball coach. Like, I actually do really believe that. I think Jordy Fernandez can coach. They have Michael Porter Jr., they have Nick Claxton, they have Terrence Mann, they have Cam Thomas, they will get Haywood Highsmith back at some point, seemingly, and they have Daron Sharp. Like, they have some vets that are pretty good at basketball here. And there are probably going to be a few games where Cam Thomas and Michael Porter Jr. like shoot them into games. I don't think it's going to be enough games to where they can get to 22 wins. But I think that early in the year, particularly, they can probably get some games that we're not expecting. And maybe like, at the turn of November, we're looking at them. And it's like, oh shit, they're 8-12. They're like almost halfway to the win total they're like, 40% of the way to the win total they need. Should we be worried about this? And it's like, no, like it's going to be fine, guys. They're going to have to move. They might have to move Cam Thomas, like, Michael Porter Jr. If they have to pull the plug, they'll absolutely pull that ripcord and move on. I think that we're going to see a lot of kids late in the year from the Brooklyn Nets. Even if they start out like 12-9 or something and like really surprise, I still think that there's probably a good chance that they get to the under, if only because they're going to really pull the ripcord, I think, at some point. Like, speaking of the Portland shuffle or whatever you called it, like
Portland pivot. Yeah.
Portland pivot. Like they could really Portland pivot here.
Yeah. I think the Portland pivot will happen around Halloween.
Yeah. Okay. That's so early. The Washington Wizards next. this team is just way too young, I think. Like, yes, they have CJ McCollum. Yes, they have Chris Middleton. And look, like, I think there's a real case for both of those guys, like, not taking buyouts, to be honest, if only in order to like maintain their bird rights and be able to, in the offseason, like have some sign and trade flexibility and maybe even get like a little bit more money by doing that. So I think everyone's expecting those guys like, oh yeah, this is just obvious buyout candidates. I think there's like a little bit, it's a little bit more complicated than that with those two. They're both on expirings, by the way, so they could like very easily just be trade candidates at a certain point, but they're making so much money. Like Middleton's at 33 million, McCollum's at 30 million. I think it's going to be hard to like move them. So I say this to say, like, it wouldn't be totally staggering to me if like they spent the year there at the end of the day, when we're kind of anticipating like buyouts potentially. Maybe they do get bought out. I'm not sitting here like saying it's not impossible. I'm just sitting here saying that I think that there are avenues to where that doesn't happen, I think is maybe what I would answer. Who do you think is currently on this roster the sixth oldest player?
Jeez. Can I talk it out? So you got Middleton and McCollum. You've got Corey Kispert, Marvin Bagley. Cam Whitmore.
Anthony Gill is on the roster as well.
So is Cam Whitmore the sixth?
No, he's young.
Is Justin
21.
Champagnie the sixth?
Justin Champagnie and rookie Jameer Watkins are currently the sixth.
Okay.
At 24 years old. This team is just so young. This team is so young. You just don't win when you're this young. It just doesn't really happen. I think the world of Trey Johnson and his like ability to score the basketball. Alex Sarr is going to have a solid, year this year, I think. Koulibaly is hurt now, so like you're not even going to have that as like a defensive minded wing. We'll see when he gets back what that can be. I thought Carrington's rookie season was like really up and down. Cam Whitmore is kind of the wild card here, like could end up being like a real solid player. And obviously when we did breakout players, I put Keyshawn George on that list, and I think Keyshawn might have like a really good year. And that comes from somebody that was like pretty low on him to start, as a draft prospect, at least I was quite low on him. I think Keyshawn George is actually quite good, to be honest with you. Maybe Whitmore is just a stud. Maybe Whitmore averages like 20 a game because they don't really have like a tried and true 4-man all the time. But yeah, I think this is an under, and I do feel good about this one getting locked up as an under.
Yeah, I'm under as well. You outlined it. You talk about who's the sixth oldest player. They have 9 guys that are 22 years, age 22 season or younger. And all of those guys, like, you're going to want to see a little bit. I mean, that's Sarr, Trey, Bilal, Malachi Branham. Maybe you're not worried about getting him time. Bub, Cam, Will Riley, AJ Johnson, Keyshawn George. Like, I would argue that they should want to keep Middleton and McCollum on the roster for as long as possible, just to give, so you can get some like real data collection out of the season, along with, the play of Corey Kispert. So I'm under. I don't mind where this team is going. And I would assume their fan base is all about them tanking again, because based on some of the conversations we had during last draft cycle, I think they're still wanting a big swing for the fence. And again, as you alluded to, that would be important for these final couple teams specifically. You want to give yourself the best chance at a top 3 based on the information we have right now about the 2026 draft.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. They want to really try and be in that top 3, I think, at the end of the day. Look, 20 wins is low, man. 20 wins is really low. And I think that they might like go pretty far under that.
So you're both taking the under.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I flirted with the we were both taking the under. I flirted with the over for like an afternoon. We went out to lunch and I got to know the over a little bit just to see, because 20.5 is just not a lot of wins that you have to get. You could lose 60 and still hit the over. And I landed where you guys are, that there's too much youth on this team. The two valuable veterans may just be guys that they find homes for on contenders to gain more assets come February. Koulibaly missing some time. You guys would be more informed on me how long he's going to miss, but he's not going to be there with them to start the season. I end up with the under. I will say I think they'll be better than Brooklyn for whatever that means. I do think these are two prime Portland pivot candidates, though. So I will take the under with respect to Wizards fans watching this. That I did try to convince myself the over is a possibility, just because 21 wins gets them the over.
Yeah, to be clear, Koulibaly is like out for the first few weeks of the year. Like, it's not like he's gonna miss like significant time. Like, I think it's gonna miss training camp and then like a couple of weeks to start the year.
But that erases for me even more of a possibility of, oh, they're 8-7. Oh, they're 7-5. Like, there's no, even like they're 5-7, you know, there's no quick start for them, because I think one of the young player I like the most will not be there. So if this is 3-10 after 13 games, you could see an even harder pivot toward 2026 being the year. So that's
for what it's worth. I would still have Trey Johnson and Alex Sarr ahead of Bilal in terms of like the young guys. But yeah,
it's a personal. I like Koulibaly. That's really more what I was trying to say. I like where Koulibaly
and I do too.
Will end up. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. I think he's actually like a really, really good defender. I just don't know where the offense is going, unfortunately. The other thing here is just like, okay, they have Alex Sarr, who is currently this team's backup center. It's probably Marvin Bagley, right? Like, they're probably going to have to play Bagley, like, 20 minutes a night right now, 15 to 20 minutes a night. And then if one of those two guys like misses time or misses a few games, we're like pretty deep into the Anthony Gill weeds here. And that's Anthony Gill seems like an unbelievable veteran to have around, but I don't know if that's where you want to be in terms of the big rotation. And even at the 4, like a true 4, right? Like Chris Middleton might be able to slide down and play the 4. You don't really want that. He's a little bit older, quite skinny. Koulibaly's long enough to do it, but you also want Koulibaly to like be able to guard at the point of attack and like do some things defensively to bother opposing ball handlers. Whitmore is like a bowling ball. He can certainly play the 4. Dylan Jones I'm just not a Dylan Jones guy. I guess Justin Champagnie can play the 4 certainly, but it gets rough. And like Tristan Vukcevic like might play real minutes, and he has some offensive skill, but like I don't really get the defense side at all with him. Like, I don't think he really has a chance to defend. So yeah, like it's just a lot here. There are a lot of holes. Most of their, interesting players are in some respect perimeter players. Even Alex Sarr, frankly, is a perimeter player right now. Like, historically bad rookie season as a finisher. Not really an amazing rebounder at this point. As much as I love spacing bigs, you do have to do the non-negotiables as a big, and he is still working on that part of his game. So yeah, I think this one's an under to me. This one's just kind of a clear under. Okay. To recap, Cleveland Cavaliers, Bryce takes the under. Andrew and I both take the over. The New York Knicks, the Orlando Magic, and the Atlanta Hawks. All 3 of us took overs on those teams. The Detroit Pistons, I was under. Andrew and Bryce were over. The Milwaukee Bucks, I was under. Andrew and Bryce over. The Philadelphia 76ers, all of us went under. The Boston Celtics, Bryce and I went under. Andrew went over. The Miami Heat, all of us went under. The Indiana Pacers and the Toronto Raptors, all of us went over. All of us went over on the Chicago Bulls as well. Bryce and Andrew went under on the Hornets. I went over. And then both of us went under on the Nets and Wizards. I ended up with 8 overs and 7 unders. So I was, right at that 50-50 mark as much as you can be in a conference of 15 teams. Where did you guys end up in terms of the over under markers?
8 over, 7 under.
Yeah, and I have 9 and 6, 9 over, 6 under.
Look at you just being so positive toward everybody, GMAC.
Had to find some way to be positive after how the baseball season ended today for me.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Let's call it there. Before we get out of here, we got to shout out the Substack again. Game Theory, samv.substack.com. Go hit the subscribe button over on Substack. Tomorrow, Bryce will have a breakdown of Dash Daniels going up on the Substack channel. There will be a breakdown that Bryce does of Karim Lopez at some point next week. I have a couple of breakdowns coming this week on Michael Brown, probably. We have a lot of draft stuff coming up there. 2026 NBA draft. If you're a Wizards fan, if you're a Nets fan, if you're a Hornets fan, get ready. We are preparing you for the 2026 NBA draft. We couldn't be more excited to do so. There will be NBA videos that go up there as well at some point. So go hit the subscribe button over on the Substack. Game Theory Sam V, GAMETHEORYSAMV.substack.com. Andrew, tell the people where they can find your work.
At the handle below me at Andrew J. Claudio _ over at Knicks Film School, doing the pregame show for them, the pregame pod. Bryce will, of course, be a guest at some point when the Knicks play the Pistons. You could also find Mets Therapy. I did a show right before Game Theory with just Mets, a reaction to the final game of the season. So if you want an extended version of the rant at the top of the show, you can. And as always with Sam and Bryce with Game Theory Sam V on all socials, where we'll put our over-unders out for everybody to vote on and tell us how right or wrong we were.
Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, Blue Sky. Obviously, I have the Motor City Hoops Substack. Appreciate everybody that's following that after finding the Game Theory Substack. I assume that's why it's been growing over the last week. Thank you for the recommendation, Game Theory with Sam V Substack. And I will say, just after you see kind of how my video breakdowns are going to go this week with the Dash Daniels and Karim Lopez, hit me up if you ever have a recommendation or suggestion. You'll kind of understand how I'm going to do mine. So hit me with a DM or whatever. And as we go throughout the college basketball season, the overseas season, the NBA season, if you see a game from an individual player or whatever that you'd like me to take a look at, hit me up. I can try to make it happen. That'll make more sense after you see mine tomorrow and kind of how I'm going to do mine.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. Guys, I'm already starting on draft guide for the 2026 NBA draft because that's what I am. I am a savage when it comes to this stuff. So absolutely follow The Athletic. There will be stuff up there from me at some point soon. Go over to the Game Theory Substack. Go hit the subscribe button over on YouTube. Really helps us grow over there on YouTube. We are at 74,000 subscribers. We are closing in on 75,000 heading into the season. We appreciate all of you guys so much for clicking that subscribe button over on YouTube. It really helps grow the show. Thank you all so much for coming to hang out. Thank you all so much for everything you do to create this little beautiful community we have. We will be back on Thursday with Western Conference over-unders, and who knows, we might even have some news to break down by that point. Until next time, we'll talk soon.